might be live right now. It looks like I have my title was wrong. I gotta fucking check that real quick. So, how are you doing? Yeah, it looks like my title's right on YouTube. That's all I care about. Okay. Protecting our relationships on social media and boundaries. Boundaries topical, everybody's fucking talking about it. Are boundaries healthy? But how do you have a relationship and exist on social media? And what do you do to protect your relationship from social media? All right. I'm gonna hop in there.
Stardust in the waiting room. Bring her in. I think we're still waiting on Nick and Madam. Oh, and Sleeve. Got a few people. That's okay though. I mean, Madam said she was running a few minutes behind.
We need at least 10 more people.
I know, right? This is just it's too little panelists. Got to double it.
Yeah, we need to really hone into the Politico shit show thing with here. Just 20, 30 more people.
Alright, cool. We are still good frame. Hello, everybody.
What's up?
I don't got permission to talk yet.
This is gonna be fun. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, it should be fun. We've got a sleeve.
I'm only here for the clout.
Cool.
That's the only reason I'm here.
True. I bring so much clout.
I've completely fallen off, and I have to bring myself back somehow.
All right. So now we only are waiting on 2 people. Hey, Steve. How's it going?
What's up, everybody? Live from San Diego.
Oh my god, it's Ronnie Radke.
I'll take that as a compliment.
For sure.
All right,
We are still waiting on Nick, I believe, and Madam, but I know that Madam said she'll be a few minutes late, which is perfectly fine. And Nick was thrown into this last minute, just like some of you were anyways. So we're good on waiting on him.
Threatened with violence if I didn't show up. She's threatened to kill my cat. She's like, you don't show up, I'll fucking kill your cat. And I was like, okay, well, damn.
Oof.
You are muted and can't turn on cam. Okay, let me unmute you. I don't know how you're muted.
Just the way Smith should be.
He's not muted. You shouldn't be muted, Smith.
Is this a power play from Smith?
Oh, Smith have roles.
Oh, Smith, you should go to
so
my
if he doesn't have roles, just right click on him, click server mute and server everything on, and then off again, and it will fix it for him.
Okay. Let me get back in here.
I reacted to it. There we go. I might do it.
All right, dragging Nick in to live, and Smith. Give me 1 second here. You said to mute and then mute, and then unmute.
Yeah. Server.
Oh, server mute and
yeah.
unmute. Okay.
Turn it on and off because you're the server owner, so it's like re-enabling his permission.
Okay, and then same thing with Nick, I guess. Mute. All right, that should work. Hopefully.
Can someone give me a reference for my microphone quality? Is it like ass or is it good?
No, it sounds fine.
I'm still muted.
Fairness.
I mean, it sounds better than Queen Alexa's. So I mean,
it's not my internet. It's my internet. Get fucked.
The standard here is very low.
It's true. It's true. Okay. Let me check to see if they can hear us or not.
All right.
Oh, okay. Smith is still working on his stream.
No, I'm
Nick, can you hear us?
I'm working on my stream, and I do not have you. Oh my god. I do not have permission to speak.
This is running so smoothly. All professional streamers here.
I am not a professional streamer. I am a hobbyist.
Oh, I'm a professional.
No, Beckett, you're a child orbiter. Get it right.
Yeah, no, totally.
Wow.
Totally.
Shots from.
Yeah.
Also a mystical orbiter.
Yeah, yeah, very true. I think ultimately I'm just a Destiny cocksucker. That's the main thing I'm known for, really.
There she is. Okay.
Typical Beckett, always sucking cock. Typical.
What do you mean typical? What's that?
Stars told stories. I've heard
the worst person to hear that
Shit
review
on
from.
woman.
Is that the first fucking like? So I was going to be nice tonight, but if this is how you're going to be right off the fucking bat,
I mean,
The romantic.
Can you feel
I
the
watched you
love
beat
tonight?
Stardust one time in private. I watched you beat her. Okay, you cannot say you're nice.
oh my god.
I know what you say behind the scenes. Inward this, inward that. I beat my girlfriend this.
Show us the bruises, Star. Show us the bruises.
That's a traumatic thing. Stop fucking, victim blaming here. It's fucked up.
I told her I'm still setting up my
bruises are only
stream.
on my heart.
And she used that as an excuse to stop trying to help
That's the worst kind of bruise.
server mute me.
I am like viciously like typing to her to like not put in a criminal report right now. I'm like, listen, it's Britain. If you say this stuff online, I'll just get arrested.
Yeah. All right.
Becky the Krebs does do this. Arrest him.
Okay, Nick is in the same boat.
I'm probably more of a risk to him than he is to me. So
that's actually true.
He worked with Count Dracula. Get him. Or Dracula. Where the fuck that guy's name was? We got arrested in the UK. I don't remember.
I fucking hate Count Dracula. Shit's ridiculous. No, Alexa's just angry because I was bullying her earlier.
You were doing shit, you fucking retard. I don't want to hear it.
Dude, Smith, why is this being such an issue for you?
I thought you were a professional, Smith.
No, I'm supposed to be the professional.
Yeah, I am.
This is real hobbyist. This is real hobbyist behavior.
I am server muted in this server.
Hold on. I'm like.
I'm actually offended that hobbyist is a slur now. I was using that term for myself fucking like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet you.
Can you stop saying that, Beckett? That's fucked up. Stop saying slurs.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You're gonna get people's streams new.
Nick back in.
he uses slurs all the time. So
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god, what the fuck is this? Is this
He
just
calls me in private. He's just like, I hate the N word. This. I hate the F slurs. That. I'm like, what the fuck, Beckett?
and I mean, he'll just open up with "hello slur," and I'll be like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Hello,
It's
slur.
insane. He's like, he opens up to me like, "Oh, F slur, how you doing? You 41% yourself yet?" I'm like, Jesus.
Oh my god.
Listen,
I'm
if
gonna
colonialism is.
I'm gonna leave the call and I'm gonna hop back in. Hopefully, everything I just did there is gonna still stay set up. I think it will. And I think that'll do it because I think that's what worked for Nick. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating.
Did it work?
Okay, is this working now? There we go.
You made it, guys.
Hello. All right, cool.
Welcome.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh my god. All right. Whatever. Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
I want to. Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for being here. We're still waiting on Man of Genevieve, but she was thrown in kind of late, so all the late people were thrown in last minute, so totally fine. Except for Smith, I don't know what he was doing.
I was trying to set up my stream, and I was
I'm-
hoping you would give me fucking permissions, and I spent the whole
I
time
did
setting
get-
up everybody's
dude,
window,
My whole
everybody's
channel
window
saw me
on my
give
thing.
you permissions.
I have
Okay,
to
my whole
redo
channel
that.
saw me give you permissions. All right.
Yeah, I think what it was, even with the perms, if we didn't check your rules, it didn't give us all of that access. That's
Yeah,
what fixed it for me.
Sorry for the mix-up, guys.
Yeah, I'm furious, but I accept your apology or whatever.
Figured out how to record
I'm
what I
sorry.
got,
Is
yeah.
Nick going to do this conversation while fucking working out? I
Yes,
feel like
that's my thing.
That's
That's
his
what
I
he
feel
brand,
like that's
bro.
an advantage to
That's
you.
his
in
brand.
This. Isn't that just like
That's my
how-
brand.
It's not
It's
a
my
brand.
it's my boundary. Do you
If
understand?
we're gonna
This
talk
is-
about brands and
Oh.
boundaries, then I'm gonna do this, okay? And this is
Oh
where
my-
I
Whiteface?
feel most
Oh, never mind.
comfortable.
Oh Lord. All right. So
I think Erudite's struggling with her microphone now too, a la Smith.
no, I think
A la Smith. I was not struggling. I was hoping someone would help me, and I was trying to set up because I make everybody's icon a different window on my
can
stream.
she not unmute
I
herself?
wasn't trying to trigger you, man. I was just saying you were having microphone problems too.
She
Hold
can't unmute herself.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
I'm
You
gonna
have
try to fix that for
committed
her.
a hate crime against Not So Erudite, and I will not stand for it.
Okay.
It's
That
just a silent
should
nodding.
work. She should be able to unmute herself now. Son of a bitch! What is going on?
You might have to
This
leave
is
and come back. 'cause
intentional.
Oh,
that's what I had to do.
Yes. Smith said try leaving and coming back. I'll drop you. I'll put. Bleh. I'll bleep bleep.
Why does anybody ever give me any time of day? I don't know.
Because you were loved. It worked.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Mahalo.
Hello.
Hi. How's it going, guys?
All right. So I guess we can get going, and we can just introduce Madam when she arrives. So if you want to start us off, Queen Alexa,
What am I even doing?
moderating,
Moderating?
Oh.
introducing the panels,
Oh,
Miss.
is that the thing that I'm doing?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh. Oh, I wasn't told. I don't
Yes,
know.
she was.
Yeah.
Look, I was gaslit into doing this.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we're doing something with fucking boundaries, isn't it? That we're doing here? No.
Okay, I'll
That's
do
not
it.
Oh,
All right.
it's
so,
relationship.
yes.
That's what it's not. It's relate. Yeah. Online relationships. Are they cringe? What are people doing with relationships? That thing. Stardust. Go.
Relationships, are they cringe or are they whack? We discussed that today on today's show. Welcome to the panel. It is being moderated by Queen Alexa. Ginger, so great. Very awesome. Put this together and put together an awesome, great group of people. Thank you, Ginger, for putting this together. Thank you, Queen Alexa, for moderating. And today, we're just going to determine, is it whack? Is it dope? And also boundaries. Are boundaries cool? Are they abuse? Are boundaries abuse? Who knows? Mr. Girl might say boundaries are abusive. I don't know. But this is what we're gonna discuss today. And don't you dare bring up bonus holes, because I'm not ready for that conversation. I'm Stardust. Come find me, twitch.tv/Stardust or youtube.com/Stardust streams. I do drama, news, and weird internet shit. So thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
Stardust.
Smith.
I think the first
No,
topic was
that's
supposed to be
not-
internet, like how to protect our relationships from social media, right?
It's mostly about what is too much information to share on your relationships to social media, and the next topic will be about boundaries.
Yeah,
It's pretty much what I said in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's
Right.
Yeah, I'm Real Smith. You can find me on YouTube. I think that it's real dangerous putting your relationships on social media.
All right, kid, not kid.
I think putting your relationship on social media is kind of cringe, but there's nothing inherently wrong about it. I don't care how much information you put out there. I don't care if you're like Darius and put everything out there, or if you're like, I don't know, some more normal person that has no interest in portraying their own relationship to the entire world, to have some sort of like a performance of how good you have it going, or maybe you just want to show off your partner. Doesn't matter. None of it matters. It is morally neutral, no matter the case, unless you're like using it to get back at someone, to abuse someone, to shit on someone who's innocent for no reason. Other than that, it's all fine.
All right, that's Erudite.
Yeah, having your relationships online is fine. I don't really care. I don't really care what people do, basically at all, as far as like they're not like breaking laws. As far as like how much is too much, I think that tends to be discovered post hoc. Typically, things are fine until they're not fine. I think there's like certain levels of like wisdom, like probably there's like best practice that could be achieved, but I think like most of online relationships exist within like the neutral, like human messy shit. So yeah.
All right, Sleeve T rocks.
A lot of passion from the crowd on this topic, I can tell. So my thing is that I think that relationships online are beneficial in the fact that people who have experience with relationships can share their wisdom and hopefully pass it along to people who are looking for relationships. So there are a lot of things you can read. There are a lot of YouTube videos you can watch. But I think relationships are one of those things you have to have a little bit of experience if you're going to talk about it. So in my opinion, if you're going to talk about relationships online, you should probably be doing it in a way that's productive, not just oversharing, not trying to turn the internet into your fucking therapist or anything like that. I think that it's probably cool if you're helping people out and helping them get guidance on how to have a successful relationship. When you put too much online, it's just simply when you're, trying to get therapy from your friends online about your relationship issues, or you're trying to get validation. I think all that shit's whack. Don't do that. But if you're trying to help prolong good relationships and help empower people to do that, then I'm all for it. And I'm Sleeve T Rocks. You can find me at Sleeve T Rocks on everything.
Thank you, Fred Durst. All right, Ginger.
I'm just gonna be moderating as well with you.
Give your fucking take. I called on you. Give your take.
Okay. Well, in my opinion, there is too much information to be shared on social media. I think that involving social media in your relationship is fine when it comes to like maybe showing an anniversary here or there, or if you're already a couple who is on the internet, that's obviously going to make it so that it's less likely that you can keep your relationship from the from social media. But like Erudite said, I feel like it's kind of up to the couple, and it's kind of like a situation where you kind of find out when it's bad, or like when it's at the worst afterwards. So.
All right, Small Nick.
Hello? Okay.
Hello.
My bad. I have no beliefs of my own. Everything my wife said.
Hey.
Damn.
Not actually.
Alright,
Basically, sorry. Not actually. Basically, do whatever you want and whatever you're capable
Take
of.
notes.
Whatever you want and whatever you're capable of. If you think you're capable of handling the repercussions of something, and then you do it, and then it comes back to bite you, don't complain about it. Otherwise, I don't really put my standards on everyone else. I only apply like societal standards. I don't think there's any societal standards against publicizing any amount of your relationship. So that's about it.
All right, Beckett, give your stupid take.
Well, I'd love to say that this is about competition or about showing off, but realistically, everyone knows I started dating Stardust to start spreading alt-right Nazi ideologies into her community, and basically to turn myself into an internet star, which we can all agree is going really well for me. No, jokes aside, I think I think it's really difficult because we're not really just talking about everyday relationships. I think we've got quite a few people in couples on the panel, and I think some of that's like seems really healthy. It can be really difficult, especially if you're not just posting your relationship, but you're actually somebody in some sort of public eye who has contentious takes or gets involved in drama and fights, or your partner gets involved in drama and fights, and then that can be difficult. But I think ultimately what we're talking about as well is when people are weaponizing public discourse in their personal fights, and dragging that into what your relationship should look like or how your partner's acting, which we see an awful lot of from things like Reddit, of people posting about how their relationship's going. or from things like Instagram with people posting idealized versions of relationships which are essentially unobtainable, either because they're trying to feel better about themselves or as part of a money-making brand or influencing deal.
If I can, I didn't realize we were doing like a serious opener, so I
You're fine.
kind of
Me either.
yeah, I started with that, and I thought that people were having trouble like introducing the panel, so I just kind of went full force on that. But
It was good.
No, I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it too.
I appreciate that. But I do want to say, like, there are some really unique issues that, as a public figure or just somebody online, if you have your relationship online, it can be, really unique to deal with as part of a relationship. Like, you never know when somebody's going to try and weaponize your relationship against you, or weaponize something that your partner has said against you, or weaponize something that you said against your partner, and it can be really complicated as far as like how much people want to share of their personal lives online. It's really none of my business. I just don't want to know if you're like doing poop and pee fetish stuff, but as because it's gross. But boring. What do you mean boring? Who said that?
Who has the fucking the sound
soundboard?
Continue.
Don't make me
Who did
turn that off.
Shut up.
Queen Alexa did.
Okay. So look, wait, Queen Alexa pressed it?
Yes.
No.
Of course.
Okay, Queen
No,
Alexa,
you can't
you're
prove that.
fucking
You
dead.
cannot prove that. Fuck you.
You are fucking dead, you stupid fucking bitch.
Do
okay?
it. Do it. Kill me.
Secondly,
Come on. Let's go.
Okay, so I guess what I would say is like I think people need to kind of be aware of the way that they share things online. Obviously, it's up to you at the end of the day, but if you start posting about every minor fight that you and your partner get into online and have people start taking sides and stuff like that, probably it's not going to end too well. So, yeah. But
Yeah, I think that there's a real problem where people, everything that usually the relationships we share online are very sanitized and fake, and we don't really show the whole picture. And it would be healthy if we saw more realistic relationships, but also I think it's really dangerous for your relationship to do that, and there's a reason that people don't. So it's like a really fine line.
Well, yeah, because then you have other people weighing in on what should be a private matter, and that's where like relationships can really go awry.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
about
I
like
mean-
putting out your worst parts of your relationship just so you can educate the public about what bad parts of relationships are like. I mean, I think that we could probably like write an article, or art and entertainment might fill that gap, not actually just
Mhm.
putting your own shit out there.
Well, I feel like
I agree with
if
that,
we
yeah.
want to talk about like the reason why people have fake relationships online or portray fake relationships online, it's because they don't share the unhealthy shit, and they probably shouldn't either.
I think that I think it's incredibly unhealthy that we all pretend to be perfect, and then whenever somebody has something slightly unhealthy, everybody jumps down everybody's throat. But we're all in glass houses. We're all doing all this shit. Like we're all a little bit fucked up, and when we see it in someone else, we pretend that we're perfect. But so I think that the utopia I have in my mind, like people are more honest, but to get there would be you're gonna throw yourself in the meat grinder, and it's not gonna be good.
Well, I
I
mean,
actually have
sorry, go ahead.
I have the opposite opinion of you, Smith. I think that whenever something goes wrong in relationships, we actually see people accusing each other of abuse, accusing each other of like the worst things in the world, accusing each other of like being the worst partner in the world. When in reality, like, yeah, we all have shitty parts of our relationships. We've all done shitty things, but does it always like measure up to the idea of like emotional abuse or things like that? No, I don't think so. And you know what? You might be right in one aspect, and that maybe because we don't see as much of the bad, people are automatically telling people to break up with their partners. On Reddit, ask for relationship advice, or people are automatically calling people abusive for a minor slight in their relationship, or maybe a major slight but still not abuse, right? So you may be right in that aspect, but I don't know. I feel like when bad things happen in relationships and we publicize it online, everybody's immediate thing is to go to the most extreme accusation and levy that at one or both of the parties. And I think that I just don't see how airing more negativity from our relationships already when people weaponize it against us is really going to help anything.
Well, that's what I'm
Isn't
saying.
that
I don't
good?
like that. I don't like that. I think that's how it is. So if you do it, that's what's going to happen to you. But I don't think we should do that. But it's not like
yeah, but
I
nobody
can
wants
snap-
to be that sacrificial lamb, Smith. Like nobody
know.
wants to be
I don't
like,
wanna
the
do
first
it.
one to step up and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be the change right now. I'm going to show you guys all the shitty parts of my relationship.
Well, no
Hopefully
one
y'all
can
feel
be.
more
Max-
comfortable doing that
Max
too.
was
You're
willing
gonna
to
be
do
the
it.
well,
But-
yeah,
but
but look,
he- but
look
he'll-
what happened to him.
He'll change 100
no one-
people. Like we need a bunch of people to do it. You know, it can't just be one person.
Well,
too.
that's the problem, isn't it?
When-
No one
here's
can
the
be that
thing.
sacrificial lamb
When-
because we're only talking about like it would only work if there's large groups of people that have all decided that they're all going to be sharing all of their like imperfect relationship information online. It's just not.
Can we,
Well, the
can we
problem-
talk about
especially,
what online?
especially, I will say, if you are a larger figure online, or even a mid-size, or somebody who's notable online, your relationship is already going to be weaponized against you in multiple ways. So, I mean, that's something
Can
that
we-
you just kind of have to take into account. So.
Can we talk about what some online relationships look like as well? When we're talking about not just posting your relationship online, but actually like how people put this out into the world. Recently, like a thread went a little bit viral where one person posted. It was about like people's altars with like multiple system
Oh.
shit, and this
Oh, that's rough,
person posted, "Oh, this happened to me. My partner's altar, who's like a demon altar, came out and threatened to put him in a coma unless I did things that I didn't want to." And that obviously fucking blew up because it was a fucking insane thing to fucking write. And you had like a range of fucking responses from people being like, actually, altars don't work that way. He's lying to you. That's a red flag and you should break up. To you're a crazy bitch. To like stuff like, oh, that's really serious. You should talk to the primary altar and see if that can be like dealt with. And then you go through the thread until at the end, you're like, I want to be really clear that I'm 16 and this is a Discord relationship. Nothing happened to me physically, except it actually did because I've got memory problems. So some of the shit that comes out online that we like kind of get the impression of is fucking insane. And especially
Yeah.
from communities of younger people who are living more and more online, because it's not
It's a
quite the same as
16
like Facebook
It's a
relationships.
16-year-old on Discord. Yeah, it's gonna be fucking weird.
Yeah, but the point
Yeah.
is, this is what's getting the traction with how people are viewing and interacting with those online relationships. And I think also when we look at the generation kind of below a lot of us, we're talking about people who are like in their late teens, coming into their 20s. These people are more and more online generally. We're seeing less people going out and making relationships, growth in things like incel culture. And is that not a little bit worrying and indicative of what relationships might look like? Because, you know, plenty of people meet online and plenty of people form those bonds now. And that's got like a weird fucking dynamic to it that I think goes beyond like normal structural friend groups.
If I could ask like a point of clarification, I feel like everybody's talking in sort of like towards a different end or whatever. Like, are we talking about who's the villain when the thing happens? Are we talking about what's productive for society, or are we talking about like what's permissible to do?
Good question.
I think the two main ones that I'm hearing that I think are interesting, in my opinion, is going to be like what's productive for society and whatever the first one was. I can't remember the verbiage that you used
Yeah.
for the first one.
Honestly,
Whereas like
Doesn't
what's
even
permissible,
remember
I
what her
think
husband says. This is just like matriarchy in
Facts.
action.
True.
actual
Well,
Brutal.
facts.
what's permissible, I
Brutal.
think it seems like everyone on the panel for the most part agrees that there's like most of this exists within the permissible, like messy human stuff. I
Right.
think for the most part.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
so-
want to
because-
I
misquote.
feel like
something,
there's,
but
Because
there's
I-
one
so-
more question. I feel like there's one more question, and that question is are online relationships giving people unhealthy standards for their own relationships?
I think even in
I
the
think so.
negative sense, because they bring out the positive sense so much that when there's a slight negativity in the relationship, it gets like exploded into something that it shouldn't necessarily be. For instance, you know, somebody setting boundaries in their relationship and then being told that those boundaries are abusive. You know, or you know, somebody deciding to reach out to the public and be like, yo, I wish my wife shouldn't, or my baby mama shouldn't be wearing this, and have the world respond, oh, you're a creep. Like there's certain things that are being slipped out there that are being perceived as this really negative thing that isn't necessarily a negative if you look at it at the big picture.
Name
I
names.
think so I think that regarding the Jonah Hill thing, I tend to agree with you. I don't think him having boundaries is a bad thing. I think he's an idiot for trying to make a surfer girl whose profession is being a semi-pro surfer change, but he's not he has a right to his what he wants out of a relationship, and I don't think it was abusive at all.
I mean, I've thought about that subject though, the subject of, like he met her at one state and then like he dated her and then he's like, he should be expected to continue to appreciate that. Somebody said like, on her Instagram, she had like sexy photos and he put hard eyes on one of them. Then after he's in a relationship with him, he's thinking, oh shoot, that's how I responded to these photos. That's probably how a lot of men are responding to this photo. And so now he has like a different perspective on it when he wants to define what the relationship is. So I think that, things do change after you like define a relationship. But in that case, like I said, he literally saw what he did and he's like, I'm a guy. This is what other guys are going to do.
And I feel like that kind of that opens the door to this is that happens all the time. You meet in a relationship and then you're immediately worried about your partner meeting somebody in that same exact way.
This is why relationships that come out cheating often, like have really low levels of trust.
I mean, I get where he's coming from on that. Like me personally, I have a totally different philosophy about all this. I like it when like other people are like looking at the thirst traps that Madame Genevieve posts and they're all like, ooh, she's hot. Because like to me, that's just like everybody's thirsting after what they generally cannot have. So, like to me, it's like a point of pride. But I know a lot of guys don't see it that way. A lot of guys are like, oh shoot, like, as the fresh and fit metaphor goes on, the car still has the for sale sign in the window, That's how they see like the thirst traps.
I feel like there's another aspect to this that it could easily be overlooked, as in like if there's information that we don't know about it, of like she has a history of like infidelity and hiding sexual
Which he alludes
stuff
to
with other
something
people.
potentially being
like
there.
there's some other
Yeah.
boundary being crossed that is happening with that. So like if you have a
Theoretically, yeah.
relationship and like you're open about like like anyone can see my fucking partner, like even like doing porn or something like that, then it's like okay. But at the end of the day, I know that she's like going to be open with me. I know that she's going to come back and be my partner. But if we find out that there's information in the background of like, oh, well, she was actually hiding a bunch of stuff behind the scenes I found out about, and so then that changed his boundary, then that would be a totally different story.
That
Do you
makes
think
a lot
that
of sense, and I think that is a completely valid point also, yeah. So
Do you think that applies to Jonah's request that she not post bikini pics on Instagram? Because I completely agree with that line of reasoning to like not hanging out with guys alone or surfing with guys alone. But I don't see how that actually directly relates to you can't have these pictures on Instagram.
I think
It really does
Nick,
in a
yeah,
punitive way.
I think in particular it's the line where he says your previously wild lifestyle.
Yeah, I agree with the notion that there probably was some stuff going on in there that's not
You
getting
find
surfaced.
things out about your partner as your relationship goes on.
Yeah.
And I know people have had the take of it, oh, it's crazy for him to ask her to like leave her career or whatever. But actually, this is a conversation like a lot of couples have, like especially if you have kids or something. You're like, okay, well, we need to work out like how childcare works. We need to work out career priorities. And ultimately, like I think there's an unhealthiness there with a lot of people who've not been in long-term serious relationships, have never had to have any of those fucking conversations.
Okay.
So they're like, well, it's really unhealthy if you do that, but actually it's kind of normal. Like you change over time, right?
But yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
but
so he didn't-
specifically does.
Okay, yeah, you continue that because I don't want to derail that.
Oh, okay. I was just saying. I agree with all of that. I agree with everything that both of you have said. I just my only hold back there is that I don't see how don't post bikini pics is proportionate or analogous or like an adequate reaction to you've had infidelity in the past, even if it's
I'm not
not far.
making. To be clear, I'm not making an argument about like whether or not like he responded in kind and it was appropriate to him to make demands that could have been even further from that. I'm just saying that those demands are probably informed by other things that we were probably overlooking. As in, if she was having like a sexual infidelity or stuff like that in the past, that's going to inform where a lot of this insecurity is coming from. I'm not
Oh, okay,
really
yeah.
making an argument of
Yeah, yeah.
whether or not it's fair or whatever.
Right.
Gotcha.
So-
If that's what you're saying, fair. Gotcha.
So it can be totally fair or unfair, but it doesn't. I think like he did it well. He expressed it well, communicated well. But the issue that I have with what I saw there, which I don't think justifies it being an online thing, but the issue with what I saw there, people don't really talk about or mention, is that in those conversations, she was like all aboard and went along with it, but there wasn't much from her side, like standing up for herself. So like, and that would have been that would have been alarming to me if I'm setting all these really strong boundaries and the person's just like, okay, yeah, and I'd be like, are you sure? Like I want to know actually how you feel, because clearly at some point she realized she didn't like it. So it's like if she had been expressing that at that moment, like that would have been better.
Well, an issue
Just-
is that lots
Go
of
ahead.
things that I've noticed, almost all the people who post like all of the reels of the DMs just don't include this DM. I actually had to go to my stream to find it because I went through her reel live. She actually posted where, in response to like his big boundary posts, like the one that makes them all explicit, she responds point by point agreeing to do all of them, like expressly.
She even
Yeah.
hearts some of his messages on what he wants from her. Like,
Mhm.
Doesn't she refer to it as like gaslighting or something afterwards?
But-
She's like, I can't believe I was gaslit
She
into all
referred
this.
to
It wasn't-
gaslighting in the after they broke up and they were having sort of intimate conversation or vulnerable conversations after breaking up. She took that as a sign that there was something more than that friendship that they were having was, and then she called that gaslighting, which was absolutely
okay.
bullshit.
yeah, I feel like there's so many words that get misused nowadays, especially on social media. That's why I wanted to talk about this topic. Was, when you bring your relationship to social media, there are words there are words that are going to be
Sorry,
thrown
just a
out there. Yeah, there are words that are going to be thrown out there. Abusive, gaslighter. These are very harmful words that are being thrown around and used like they're absolutely nothing.
You know,
Um,
I think relationships do this. Some relationships will do this where like they'll try and find really safe ways of communicating their boundaries or things that they're upset about, in a way where like I do think that there's something to be said about utilizing words like gaslighting or boundaries or whatever, and speaking in really quote unquote vulnerable ways that people kind of use to like strong arm people into just like, you're valid, I understand, you're being really like clear and like conscionable about this, it's so brave of you, and so like you'll get this back and forth of people not wanting to be the asshole and kind of like pushing people into some corners that they probably would not want to be in. I think I see that happening on both sides of this, especially like we said earlier about the accusations of Jonah like gaslighting, about being too open and vulnerable while they were friends after breaking up. It's like it seems like both of them were like trying to one up each other on like who is being the most like vulnerable person at any given moment.
What's
really,
pretty
really weird.
vulnerable though is like having all of your text messages like thrown out on the internet like the
Yeah.
way that she did. I think that's like the
Especially-
most fucked up thing about all of this, honestly.
Especially after agreeing with them. Like, so if what he's doing is abusive in a sense, then couldn't that be considered abusive as well? And I'm
Yeah.
laying this very lightly because she agreed to the majority of what he said, and then years later decided after they had a breakup that she was going to throw these exact messages that she agreed with onto the internet and try to paint him as a gaslighter. Like, that's really
Yeah,
And
I don't
that-
think there's enough people questioning about like, okay, what was supposed to be accomplished? What was the reason for this actually being like public
Yeah,
for the
'cause
entire world? Is
I
this
don't
actually
know.
some reformative justice thing?
Well,
It
I-
seems like revenge.
Yeah,
From-
it does. I
maybe.
mean, that's the only
Calls it
reading that I
revenge.
can basically like pull out of that, because it's been like 2 years since the relationship. I feel like this one's been like kind of dead and buried for a little while. There's really no reason to put this out here except like one day you were feeling hostile and you decided you'd get a little bit of revenge. I
There's
don't
a-
know what the message is that
there-
you're supposed to be pulling out of this.
There's a message. I think there's a story that people can learn from in this. Like I was saying, like she agreed to all these things. I don't remember that thing you're talking about, not Saradite. So maybe you can like tell me if I'm wrong. But I just got the sense that she was like people pleasing him, and she might have been agreeing, but I don't believe she actually was thinking about it. And I don't think it's worth calling him an abuser, but I think that the lesson people can learn from this is that like you should be try to like be more thoughtful and stand up for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, she in her whole thread change, she had a post that called like "When you get healing and revenge at the same time." She
Yeah.
had that explicit within her story.
I don't know whether this feels like a guy take, but I've had partners before who have broken up with me and then been very fucking angry about it, very vicious, like tried to turn members of friend groups against me because of it. I think this is an experience actually a lot of guys have had.
Yep.
Because it's like that easy hit back. Like one particular partner, like we broke up, and she came to me and she was like, she brought one of our friends and was like, just so you know, while we were together, I was sleeping with him. And I was like, I don't care. I literally don't give a shit. And it made her even more fucking angry. Like, so I think when I read those messages, listen, it's fine. It's a long story. But anyway, but when I read those messages, I see someone who's really angry. It coincides with him having his kid, and kind of all these like nice pictures posted out. And I think that a lot of people want to like kind of shit on something when it's good for an ex-partner when they're feeling bad. You see this a lot. I don't actually think it's that complicated.
Well, to that point, I think that she had some really unhealthy boundaries as well, and she made it clear after they broke up. And months after, and he messages her and says, just so you know, I'm dating someone new. And then she says, well, I think since you're dating someone new, I need you to be open with them about the fact that we sexted 2 months ago. That was also making a quote unquote boundary on how he should be engaging with his new relationship with the context of the fact that they were sexting in the past or something, which seems incredibly resentful and probably informs a little bit of why this is all coming out kind of randomly 2 years later.
Look, this is Twitch poll, so we are very familiar with the fact that we need to be familiar with everyone sexting everyone in this space. If anybody is sexting everyone, it has to be public knowledge right away, or else there could be abuse and power dynamics that are going on, and we can't have that.
I'm fucked.
Well, no, power dynamics happen when there's actual power dynamics. The sexting doesn't make power dynamics. That's just a bullshit retard thing you just said.
Cute laugh. But anyways, the whole point that I was trying
so
to make
power dynamics
that...
are a specific thing, and they're not just sexting is not sexting is not power dynamics.
Well, my point is that if somebody's talking about sexting, generally we have to talk about the fact, should there be like an examination of what's going on between these two people? There could be power dynamics. There should be, like, even according to you, you said there needs to be a level of transparency amongst us if we're going to be honest and not bullshit this space. So no matter what, I think that, yeah, it should be something that should be examined, no?
I don't know.
I personally almost never care about power dynamics myself. I think power dynamics is often like it's like a God of the gaps argument that occurs like anytime there's like relationship like weirdness. There are certain explicit power dynamics that are problematic and are codified in law that I am for, right? So like if you've got a boss and he's like weaponizing sex with a secretary and like threatening and like impacting her job in any way because of the sex, or her like wanting to remove sex, right? That's a really, really big deal. But I feel like so often when we talk about power dynamics, it feels like kind of like a toss off of being like, see, something bad is happening. And it feels like really akin to concern posting. And there's a lot of power dynamics that I just like, when I hear people talk about it, I'm just like, I'm sorry. I don't know how much this makes. I don't know how much this weighs in for me.
I'm curious for what everyone would say. Like, I would say there is literally no power dynamic that matters. The problem is the abuse of a power dynamic, and if that's not happening, the power dynamic's completely irrelevant. Like,
I agree with that too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like, I feel
well, Jonah Hill does have a lot more followers.
Right. Like, so you can't have any
disagree
relationship if you're famous or have a lot of followers or whatever, because the power dynamic makes any sexual relationship a rapey one.
No, it's not the power dynamic.
Single forever.
It's how it's abused.
Like, we're talking about famous people here, but let's be clear about why power dynamics, like at root, can be really problematic. So when we're talking about power dynamics, for instance, the amount of politicians who seem to fuck their secretaries, there is an implicit power dynamic there, that like there's an attraction to the power and an abuse of that power because you're in a position of authority over somebody as an employer, which makes it inherently unhealthy. When we're looking at like a teacher that ends up dating one of their previous students, there is an implicit level of trust that is imparted through that system that then is like unhealthy to carry on. We kind of recognize these things almost on an intrinsic level.
Well, couldn't
like,
fame
I
count
get-
as
I-
that though?
Yeah, I would say it depends on like how long ago that student was your student. Like if it was immediately after high school, that's a little sus. But like, you know, a couple years down the line, you're like, oh, I ended up dating my high school, you know, teacher or whatever. It's a little bit different. Was where I feel like the power dynamics get really confused.
Well,
Because it's
I
like
mean,
a
like,
boss.
I'm
a boss.
not saying this is clear cut, but I'm
Mhm.
saying that it's, you know, you can look at something that's like potentially healthy. Like let's look at the Prime Minister of France, who is married to his teacher from school, and like we can look at that and go, firstly, fucking French people, but secondly, like we recognize that that's a weird fucking thing to have happened. And like when we look at like employers having relationships with their employees, yeah, those relationships, if handled properly and responsibly, can be fine. But often you will find in the corporate world that if you're dating somebody who works below you, they will be moved out of your direct chain very fucking quickly.
Yeah,
Because
but
there are multiple things that could go wrong. If, let's say you break up, or you start dating somebody else in the office. I've seen this fucking happen. And it turns into a huge thing, which is disruptive to the wider business. It's disruptive to the people involved. And I know people who have worked together and got divorced, and people have left companies over it. These things are stuff you have to carefully consider. And just being like, well, it depends on the abuse, I don't think it's enough.
well, but all those things that you just described are like relatively modern inventions and regulations of professional culture, generally speaking, through HR departments that want to protect the business, not that are morally concerned with the outcome for the individuals. You know what I mean?
I've got an age-old one that we have created laws, and we never talked about it as a power dynamic thing, but marriages, through like most of history, men had all the power in relationships, so we had laws like that would protect women when they get divorced, and we made like not age-old, like, you know, like 50 years old, but stuff like that, and those make less sense when we have more egalitarian relationships. But the reason we had those protections for women is because we know that they had less power, so we wanted to make it safe for them to be in relationships with men. So I think any relationship kind of has it. And I think it's okay to be in a relationship with a power differential. But I think that when there's a power differential, you have to try to, like, if you're the one with the power, you have to try to advocate for your partner in some way. You have to try to give them more power.
Well,
What about the power that she has, though?
Just going back to like what Nick was
Women
saying
don't have
earlier.
power. What are you talking about?
Just going back to what.
Well,
Just going back to.
I'll dispute that, but go ahead, kid.
Sorry, I'm just taking
Going
the
back
piss.
to
I'm
what-
just taking the piss.
Just going back to
Fuck,
what.
no.
Just going.
He's only saying that because Star's not here. So
Oh,
Shut up.
true. Super based.
Seriously.
You'll never
Going
get
back
to
to what
talk,
Nick
kid.
was saying earlier,
Finish it
the
up.
the thing that I think was important was the question about whether or not in power dynamics there's inherently something unethical going on, and the answer, it seems like everyone says, no, it's not inherent to power dynamics that something unethical is going on. Yes, something unethical can be going on, but that it looks like we all basically agreed to Nick's premise there.
Yeah, I think what happens a lot of time is that people go like, well, this is risky. And so they go, because it's risky, it's bad, right? And coming from a funny Christian land, just because something's risky, it doesn't make it bad. And it like leads to a very restricted like world, right? So the idea of like the former teacher and the president, right? Okay, well, there's a power dynamic that she was a teacher. He's the fucking president of France now as well. So is that a power dynamic? Is that bad?
technically, anybody they're married to, it'd be a power dynamic.
True.
At a
I'm
high
slightly
level.
older than Nick, and I was technically his boss at one point.
That's true.
Firstly, France.
He wasn't directly in
come
my
on.
Well,
field at all, but yeah.
You weren't my boss. You're just a superior in the.
I was a superior, yeah.
Yeah,
He was in
yeah.
a totally different wing.
Was a superior. What's
Yeah.
this? No, come on. Still the superior.
facts.
Future article incoming from Nick.
What kind of stupid concoction is this?
Yeah, he's convinced me that women shouldn't vote, so you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
well-
actually something that we talked about a lot in our Discord server for a while, and I just kept bringing up the analogy. So it's like, okay, me and Erudite got into a relationship under the premises that she grew up middle class, good education, wealthy, was my superior at work, and as a man with white, sure, and as a man with muscles and stuff, I could destroy her at any moment. You know what I mean? It's like, so is that how can we parse?
That's a power dynamic. True.
How can we pass these power dynamics? Like, are buff people never allowed? Can buff men only date buff women, and vice versa? Like, it just makes the world impossible to live in.
We have to
No, everyone should
Can gun owners only marry fellow gun owners?
We have to advocate for women.
Speaking as a non-buff man, I want you to be as miserable as fucking possible. So I would quite like if you could let's institute that. Buff people who are good looking and healthy, aren't allowed to be healthy. Aren't allowed to be happy.
Word.
That's the new rule. Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I can't find any fault in that logic.
Listen, I feel shit over here. I'm sat next to Nick while smoking a cigarette while he's sat in a fucking gym. Are you kidding me? This is just abuse.
Well, you have 10 more
making
minutes to
Beckett
complain
feel
about
bad,
this,
Nick.
then we're going to the next topic.
Okay,
I just wanted to bring up one thing really quick, if I can. There's the element I was thinking of responsibility, because she has a lot of responsibility where she was sitting. She has the power to essentially ruin his career with some specific information, and she needs to be very responsible with the things that she releases and the way that she does it. And in my opinion, I think she had a lot of power to destroy his career because he's kind of Hollywood sweetheart and everything. And so she put this out. It doesn't matter exactly how she did. This is something that's going to hurt him regardless. And I think that she was extremely careless. So I think we need to at least acknowledge the fact that she had power too. She was able to throw this out and do really damaging things to his career, and she did.
Well, yeah, but the power that she had is almost I don't think that's you're equating him having actual power to her having power that's the result of us trying to empower women. So she has power because we're trying to make it so that she's not powerless.
Yeah, but do you think that all power that we give to women is just universally good? I mean, in that case, it sounds like the believe women thing that we gave was actually a bad thing. It actually worked against.
I don't know.
Equalizer. We gave women the power to leak screenshots on the internet.
Exactly.
No,
this is the issue. It's a bastardization of the Me Too movement in a large part. The Me Too movement was super meaningful when it started, right? It was about the Weinstein case, and there's a bunch of women that came forward talking about cases of sexual assault where nobody was tried and charged, right? I was a part of the Me Too. I participated in some of the original movement. But the problem is that it's migrated into this new little monster. For example, if Nick and I ever had a tension, despite the fact that so many people apparently think that I'm an evil woman who hates all other women, which God, I wish that was true for my career, but it's not. If I came up tomorrow and I said that Nick was controlling my mind, and that a large reason why I had all these countercultural views is because of Nick, and he's been gaslighting me. The reality is that I actually have a large amount of social kind of power in this case. I mean, there's a power dynamic in that I'm the larger streamer, but also there's also this tendency that also exists that I think leans towards favoring women, which started out in a really good space and has become kind of abused and toxic in a lot of other venues, and women are definitely kind of opportunistically using it.
We shouldn't believe all women. We should listen to all women, though. That's why.
I wanted to say that I just want to say really quickly.
You don't think we should listen?
All women.
Hold on.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think that she should have been listened to. This is the whole thing about the Jonah Hill situation should not have happened.
Yeah, why the fuck should I listen to this person?
Yeah,
It's Erudite pointed out something really, really interesting earlier. That I guess she posted something along the lines of this is both revenge and healing. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that was a post she had on her reel. It was a picture of Buddhist prayers.
To me, that seems incredibly contradictory. I don't see any reason why anyone needs to be hearing her out or anything like that. I don't see how this is going to be beneficial for her healing. I have no idea how this is going to be better.
I disagree.
I don't think that's. If you need revenge to heal, then it's not proper healing.
It's
Okay,
not
yeah,
healing.
but that doesn't matter. Like that, the point, like she's obviously toxic. She shouldn't have done this. I don't think it was like abuse, but I don't think that telling her so if she's wrong, she's clearly not mentally perfectly healthy. What she's presenting is she's not. I think it doesn't look like the abuse that she thinks it looks like. But if she thinks it looks like abuse, and we're telling her to shut up and you shouldn't, you're crazy. Like no, we shouldn't do that. I think she should be allowed to talk, and we listen and we say we don't agree, but we're
Well,
going to
if it's
listen.
fucked up and crazy, then yes, we should be saying
If
that.
you
she
didn't
says that
have
kind of
our
stuff out.
side, if you didn't have our side saying the things that you said, then you would only have the side of the people saying that he's being abusive and violent towards her.
No, I'm not saying we
to
shouldn't be
answer that
critical. I'm not saying we
why
shouldn't be
should I listen?
critical of the things she says. I'm saying we should listen to it and then judge it, and
Why?
not just dismiss her.
So
Well, yeah, we
I
listened
think I
and
want
we
to.
didn't like the contents of it.
Good,
I think
that's
it's pretty
perfect.
straightforward.
That's perfect.
I think
Go ahead,
I
Nick.
want to. I think I want to agree to some extent, or at least on the fundamental of what Smith is saying, is that when victims come out, I think they should be afforded some degree of benefit of the doubt. The thing is, I think that benefit of the doubt needs to be restricted pretty quickly. So I don't want to talk about her like mental state necessarily, but I think the really big problem with this case specifically is the toxic elements of like the feminist girl boss shit that's kind of permeating our culture as an addition to the Me Too stuff. Because like so many people it might be a minority, I don't really know, but so many people see her post this. What was it again? When you get revenge and healing at the same time. There's a sizable, at least a minority of people going, "Oh my God, slay queen, yes!" And it's like that's the problem. Like that should be the character testimony where we see that and we're like, "Oh, okay, I don't know if you get the benefit of the doubt anymore."
But
That's
what-
a bit of
Yeah.
a red flag,
Wait,
not
wait,
just a
wait,
yellow.
But can't she be like?
I don't
Can't
know if this is already.
But I want to
Sorry,
argue
go
with
ahead.
him. Can't she be like that and also like be right? Like
Yes.
can't she be toxic, like
Yes.
a toxic like psycho, but also be right that she
Yes.
was being abused at the same time?
She can. She absolutely can, which is why I say you give the benefit of the doubt as long as the person appears above reproach. And then when they're no longer above reproach, that's kind of more when you really fine tooth comb dig. And then if you find anything, it's like, okay, like, whoa, the red flag was validated. I'm not saying a red flag means we completely reject you. It's just red flag means pay attention. You know what I mean?
Okay, but you see, okay, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you that like people who are coming out with victim claims should be able to make those claims. But when we're saying all women should be listened to, we're talking about a standard where everyone is able to come out and actually have we're affording everyone the ability to kind of come out with whatever they want. But just coming out and saying something in the current situation is not neutral. It is not a neutral position to come out and accuse somebody of abuse. It is not a neutral position to come out and accuse somebody of child abuse or rape or any of those things. Because even if those claims are completely fucking false, there are people who will still believe them. They will still have impacts on men. And like part of the problem is there's no like repercussions legally or like things that can like put people away from doing that. And you like a video came out the other day of a Lyft driver who was like recording passengers in his car. They'd phoned the police and were screaming that he was trying to rape and attack them. Now, if he hadn't had that footage, if all they had was this phone call, that guy's life could have been fucking ruined because two crazy bitches wanted like a free lift. Like that's not the same situation. And then the burden of proof is all on the person being accused rather than the accuser in the court of public opinion to prove themselves innocent. And we saw this with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Johnny Depp had evidence that was put out in the British court case, and some of the evidence is the reason like Heard won, suppressed for the American court case, and then had a load of fucking propaganda put out against Heard. The actual, like, it's how deep it is fucking shocking. And it completely destroyed Amber Heard's life because he had the power to do that and he shouldn't have been listened to.
Okay, Star, you want to say your piece?
I'll
Wait,
just
one more?
defer to somebody else for now, and then I'll chime in later. Yeah.
All right, Kim, you get the final statement. Go.
Okay, so I feel like saying really vague statements about like we should be listening to women it's like vague to a fault, where it's kind of making the statement that we ought to be listening to this person that's putting out a bunch of personal details that has no clear, obvious sign of any goal that's supposed to be achieved other than just revenge. Like, what was her purpose of posting all this? Just to warn other women that he's going to be asking them for particular boundaries that they could easily say no to? Like, what was the point? Why should I be listening to her? There's no.
Well, that's
good
the thing.
That's a
Well,
really
that's
good
why I made the
point, because-
distinction
because
between.
That's a really good point because Jonah Hill is married, right? And he has like a kid on the way, or already has a kid, right? It's
Yeah.
not like yeah.
But that's why I made a distinction
like
between.
that.
That's why I made a distinction. You're equating the two things. I tried to make a distinction between. I want to make a distinction between believing all women and listening. And I
No,
think we
that's
should.
not what I'm saying.
I think
I'm
we
saying
should
that-
listen,
I'm
but we
saying that
shouldn't. We should be
I'm
like, okay,
saying that
I
the
hear you're
virtue
saying
signal
it
is
doesn't.
so
It doesn't
vague
work.
to a fault. That's what I'm saying. I'm not equating them. I'm saying that the virtue signal is so vague that it's to a fault, and we can see
Yeah.
what the
No,
fault
I'm not.
happened.
I'm trying to
And
make it
we see a
less vague.
situation
I'm
like
trying.
this,
I'm
people
trying
just
to
don't
make it less
dwell on
vague, but you're interrupting me. I'm saying we should listen. That what that means is you think that you were abused. We listen. We look at. Okay, this is not enough evidence. I don't think you're abused. We should not like the life ruination thing is a big deal. We should not. That should not be a thing. So if we're going to listen to women, we also have to be willing to be more neutral and be more like not the whole like dog piling cancel culture thing needs to be way more chill if we're actually prepared to listen to women.
I think that's probably
if I
fine as
can,
long
I
as you're
have a
willing to say
really-
that after the fact we can be able to say, you know what, probably shouldn't have listened to her.
I have a really hot take on this, I think, and I think that it is we have to expect to some extent for people to be really shitty and have really shitty moments in relationships and interpersonal like friendships and things like that. So that means even if somebody comes out and says this person was like, you know, and it's proven that this person was like a piece of shit and abusive to them. You know what? Maybe it actually shouldn't be as much of a life ruiner as it is currently, because there needs to be like a path of redemption. There needs to be a path where somebody can learn and grow from that. Because we were all like, you know, high schoolers at one point, and I'm sure we've all done really incredibly shitty things in our youth, right? But yeah, I think probably like my hottest take in this stuff is I think one way to counter act and kind of combat that whole life ruination aspect is to maybe normalize a little bit of abuse, honestly.
I was.
Thank you,
I got
hottest
in,
person in the room.
I
Look,
got
we're-
in big
we're
trouble
ending
for
on that
talking
one.
about that on
That-
Twitter.
that's
Everybody
where,
fucking
that's where that
hated it.
ends. Okay. The next topic. All right. When do boundaries move from
Normalize
healthy to
abuse.
toxic?
The new take
When
from
is it
Stardust.
when is it considered abuse? There we go. That's the next topic.
Sorry, repeat it.
What? I didn't. hear
Okay. When do boundaries move from healthy to toxic? When is it considered abuse? That's the
We
next
kind of
topic.
already-
That perfectly lines up with what I was about to say because
Perfect.
I
All right,
was
guess
getting
what,
into.
Smith? You were the first one to go. Why don't you open up?
Well, I got in big trouble because I was trying to say that I think,
Be right back.
and it's obviously true, abuse is a spectrum, and it's not like we need a legal black and white distinction where now you're an abuser and now you're not. But in actual terms of how things are actually working, it's a spectrum. So if someone's doing something abusive, they should be able to admit it to themselves. We should be able to talk about it, and they should have a path to growing without them being like, "You're an abuser, go to jail." So we wouldn't. That's why we shouldn't be jumping down people's throats. We should have a more like accurate, nuanced, not fucking stupid, black and white like Sith Lord absolutes only like attitude about shit.
I would agree with you on that. I think you know that there's a huge difference between somebody who has manipulative tendencies or even is like outright manipulative of their partner and emotionally blackmails their partner versus somebody who literally beats the living shit out of their partner every day, right? And one of these is, you know, one of these I feel like is not nearly the same weight as the other, right? Obviously, somebody who is like on the verge of killing their fucking partner through physical abuse, that person needs to be in jail. But when somebody is being manipulative, somebody is being using emotional blackmail, yes, it's super fucking shitty, but I don't know that I want their life to be ruined for the rest of their life.
I guess
Alright,
I
in my
don't
view,
know
like
about
when
that
we're
one.
when we're talking about abuse, I just don't think abuse is within like the conversation of boundaries, right? Like it's not like I have a boundary with Nick of being like, so just so you know, like I personally don't want you to hit me in the face every time you get angry. That's like what we have like laws and morals for, right? I think everyone would agree that you don't get to like physically assault your partner. You don't get to coerce your partner. You
Unless
don't get to
they're
like
into that.
defraud. You don't get to steal from your partner. There's like a whole
Sorry,
bunch of
babe.
things that I think are really well captured already by like, for the most part, our legal system. You don't get to SA your partner. So when I'm talking about boundaries, I think like when people are like, well, when is boundaries abuse? I'm like, if we're talking about abuse, we're not talking about boundaries. Nobody has a boundary where they go to their girlfriend like, look, when I get mad, I personally just need you to let me punch you in the face 15 times. That's not a boundary. Nobody's having these conversations. That's not how abuse typically works, right?
It's abuse
What
when
we're
it gets to
talking about,
16.
yeah, what we're talking about is Jonah Hill type boundaries, where we're like talking about, is it okay to ask your partner pretty extreme things that are major lifestyle changes, major life changes that maybe they do or do not want? Is that okay? Is that toxic? I think that's really what we're talking about. Because like, yeah, nobody's having a boundary about abuse. Everyone thinks
So-
abuse is bad.
No, I mean, I
So-
agree with you. I my only reason for voicing what I was because we were talking about like combating this idea of somebody's life being ruined because of specific things that people will say about them on social media and stuff like that. But yeah, 100%. Like, you know, boundaries and abuse. You know, it's a different conversation unless somebody is calling somebody else's boundaries abuse, I guess.
I
Well,
feel
okay,
like-
so would this boundary be abusive? So let's say if you want to be in a relationship with me, you cannot have a cell phone. Would that be abuse?
It depends on if you consent to that.
Can they
What if
have a
you're
house
Amish?
phone?
Can you consent to abuse? Is it not abuse if you consent to it?
You can definitely consent to abuse.
Sorry, hi guys. Madam Genevieve here. Not having a cell phone is something that might be appealing to some people. Like there might be some conversation about it. That's not inherently abusive. It could be like, hey, I think we're both gonna live less involved tech lives and we're gonna install a house phone in our home together and we're gonna have a computer out in the living room like it's 1999. And you know, that's the lifestyle that I'm interested in. Like that's not an abusive way to go about that. So I don't think it's just fair to say
Yeah.
like it's
Okay.
But what if
inherently
one
think-
person
I
is
think,
allowed to
you
have a
need to-
cell phone?
I think-
Hold on. What if
I
one
think-
person's allowed to have a cell phone and the other person is not allowed to have a cell phone? Is that abusive?
It depends
Yeah,
on like how
okay,
that
we can
arose
speak
within
to
the
it.
relationship.
Okay, before we get
exclusively.
into really like succinct examples and debate like Brandon stuff to death, I actually disagree with you. I don't think you can consent to abuse. I think there are some things that we understand that if you're consenting to, there are underlying issues that cause that consent. If someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm a cannibal and I want to eat you," and you're like, "That's fucking great. I've always wanted to be eaten." We
It
wouldn't be
happened.
like, "Oh, that's like a fucking like healthy thing to do." That has happened, and we've turned around and been like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And people are institutionalized for those sort of mental health things. So we wouldn't say that that's and in the same way, like if someone said, "I want to work for somebody and do a load of work for them for free and never like and have no freedom and they're going to like control what I do," we would look at that and go, "Well, that's fucking slavery, isn't it?" And there are labor laws. You can't consent to being abused in the workplace. So there are certain things that we're going to be like, actually, that is abusive, even if the person in that situation doesn't realize it's abusive.
It feels like a really, really weird question to say, like, can you consent to being abused? It's like, well, it requires you not consenting. So, like, can you consent to not?
No,
consent?
I know that
It's
that's
like,
what he's
it's a
that's what
circular
he's saying.
question, doesn't make
That's the
sense.
thing. No, it's not circular because that's what Beckett was addressing. He says even if you consent, like it does. He's saying it doesn't require you not to consent to it. He's saying that even if you consent to it, it's still abuse. Like you can consent to someone eating you, and it's still like that's still like murder. You know.
What?
Wait, how?
I think we have to have like two
It's-
dynamics and boundaries, right? Because boundaries are negotiations between two individuals, right? So, like, if I go up to somebody and I'm like, "Can I eat you?" We would all agree that like sane, healthy, uncoerced people, for the most part, would say no, right? And so it's like I could probably make the ask. I hope the person reports me to the police as well when they say no. And so, like, can you consent to abuse? It's like, well, the issue is what is the circumstances surrounding. So, example, in the workplace, if you've got a secretary who's getting like essentially to some degree sexually harassed by her boss, and like she might say like, "Yo, yeah, I love it," like, "Tee, I love it," but she's also like afraid to like pull back because the one time she did, he like snapped and it like had a major implication on her workplace. Well, in that case, she's consenting to the like sexual harassment, but I wouldn't call it consenting because she's coerced by the fact that like he had like this explosive negative reaction and exploited his like actual authority power over her. So in that case, I like this isn't really
Exactly what
bound.
we're
So it's not
saying
like
is
it's not
the-
like
isn't this
it's
exactly
like
what
whether or
we're
not
saying
you
with Reddit?
consent, but like, can you consent? It's the
There's
same
always
question.
going to be exceptions where we can find an example of somebody who's consenting to something that is ultimately bad for them. People also make decisions and willingly participate in behaviors independently that are bad for them, right? But like that's where we hope that other people in their lives are going to step up and be like, hey, it seems like you're making some really unhealthy choices right now, and kind of explore what's happening a little
but society, like, and I don't mean this as a meme. I mean seriously, like, we write laws to stop people doing certain things that hurt them, because we understand implicitly that those things are going to do damage beyond maybe the intellectual understanding of the people that are doing them. They can't foresee the consequences. They have consequences to wider society. If there is a boundary there that, like, let's say, to be in a relationship with me, you have to have no cell phone, or you have to have no internet access. We understand that that is not just, okay, well, you're going to live out in the sticks. We see this with actually really fundamentalist communities. We see it as, like, yeah, we kind of accept that this happens because we've got cultural reasons. But whenever people leave those communities, we actually see, like, quite a strong response of, I can't believe you're made to live this way, because culturally it's enforced on you. Because we have wider societal norms that we kind of go, nah, this is what we've all collectively decided. The argument that individually we can just ignore these just doesn't really fit in with how fucking people or society or any of our structures work.
Well, I don't know if the legal aspect is going to be very informative, because we also have laws that say that you don't, like, in some places, if you're like if you're incredibly sick, you're going to die, you don't really have the right to kill yourself. There's going to be situations like that where I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be like, well, I mean, you probably should have that right, but there's other, like, legal issues that are, I don't care. There's a lot of other.
I'm here, so you're going to have to care.
Okay, so if you want to,
it's not relevant to the example that he's making. You having that opinion is not relevant to his example.
I think it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I don't think you can consent to killing yourself.
I have a hot take.
Okay,
that
so
I
his
think
bigger
you should
point
be
was
allowed
that
to
okay,
kill
so
yourself, even
like,
if you're.
I don't know.
We
I don't
as
know
a
if, like,
society,
euthanasia.
we as a society have agreed you cannot consent to killing yourself. To some we agreed. When something we call something abusive, like these fucking, like, Jonah Hill fucking shit, then there are people that are saying that, well, maybe as a society we should agree that this is abusive. We can have a debate, but it's clearly not objectively abusive. But we can have a conversation about, so can you really consent to boundaries like this? Is this actually something we should allow people to consent to? And that is what the argument is when we're trying to hash out if it is abusive or not.
What I'm saying is, wait, hold on.
Like, can respond.
What I'm saying is, if you were going to make statements about, like, what we ought to be doing, and then basing it off of, like, a legal framework or what society says, that means nothing. It doesn't matter what society has agreed on ought to exist. That means nothing to what ought to exist. I don't know why you would try and make an argument that, like, well, as a society, we've all collectively. I didn't collectively do shit. I don't know why you're saying that this is going to frame what I ought to be doing or what I ought not to be doing.
Okay, so every time we have a conversation, like, I want to have, like, I want to live in a society. So
good for you.
And that's the next video. Suicide is complicated.
Could I clarify just, like, the definition of abuse? Like, what do we mean when we actually say it? Because depending on how we're using the word, I either don't give a fuck at all. Yes, you can consent to abuse. That doesn't mean you can, like, break penal code, or absolutely not, you can't consent to abuse and everyone should hate you for it. Like, depending on how we're defining abuse. Like,
well, yeah, sure. I just, everybody shouldn't. I think people shouldn't hate you for it, but it means that you're making you're putting your partner through something that they shouldn't reasonably be having to be put through, even if they are comfortable with it.
I guess I don't think we have. Okay, so cool. I'm cool with agreeing on, like, any definition. I think I just, my issue is, like, I think we have very little business in most cases, kind of collectively as a society, saying, we know what's best for you in this case, and you must abide by it. Like, we don't really get to look at, like, a conservative or fundamentalist Muslim and basically say, you cannot wear the burqa, you cannot wear the niqab. That's crazy. Your husband restricting what you can and can't wear is totally wrong. Like, sure, society doesn't really like it. Like, us Western secular societies, we don't really like it, I think, almost unanimously. But we're fine with it because we don't really believe in forcing our religious beliefs or our moral beliefs on everybody. That's why you have the penal code. And once you go beyond the penal code, we're like, okay, that's the standard we don't allow.
But there are certain things that we don't allow, right?
Like
in France,
like female genital mutilation or something like that, which is against the law. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah. like FGM, like actually in France, banning of the hijab. You've also got stuff like.
Well,
certain,
my understanding is that doesn't really have to do with the content of this discussion. Right? Like France, it's a public safety concern, not a domestic concern, I think. Right?
Well, it's to do with so just very quickly, it's to do with the fact that France is a religious republic and has been since the revolution, and you're also banned, for instance, if you're in the public service, you can't wear a cross, you can't openly display certain symbols of religiosity in situations that are public, and with the hijab, it's considered like it's got some public safety stuff to it, but largely it's to do with the fact that it's seen as forcing religion into like people's lives without their consent. And
if that's actually
yeah.
if that's actually justification, me as a non-French person, I would say that's wrong. Like from the perspective of like British common law, Western Enlightenment values, I just think that's flat out wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it largely results from the fact that France like completely threw the church out, and it's like it doesn't have a separation of church and state. Religion is just about tolerated.
Well, it sounds like they don't have religious freedom either. Then, basically,
you can be religious, but it's not.
It's
not tied in the way. Yeah,
cross
it's not
isn't exactly like impacting anybody around you, right? Like the hijab specifically, my understanding was that it was like about security stuff, which I think is like negotiable within like a nation state of like, okay, well, like can you have, especially like I forget what it's called when it's like the full and just the eyes are showing, right? But that's like a very specific type of security.
Well, they banned headscarves in swimwear. So, like, even with like your face showing, if you had a headscarf as part of a swimwear suit on a beach, that was banned.
Yeah, so so that's not religious then. So that's the public safety. If it's a public safety concern, I'm totally cool with that. I don't think that's
religious.
I think the headscarf was religious.
No. But you said you can't wear. I thought you said you can't wear.
They can't cover their hair when they're wearing a bathing suit. They can't wear like the bathing suit hair covers.
Yeah. Wait. For religious reasons?
Yeah.
Religious reasons.
Hijab, it's called.
Like their face is fully shown.
Oh, the swimming hijab. Oh, okay. Sorry.
That was banned on public beaches. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's bad. I think that shouldn't be allowed. Yeah, French is a totalitarian state. Then it's cringe. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I thought the same thing when I heard about like France's and that brought up like a lot of interesting conversations about consent and like how you're allowed to express yourself and what have you. I thought that the French approach to religiosity was actually like very extreme. I didn't like it at all, and I'm like a total atheist. I don't believe in any of that. So I think that the swimwear was probably the most extreme example, but. Anyways, I was thinking we could maybe like bring this back to the idea of yeah, exactly. Fuck Macron. I agree. Right on, brother. But I was going to bring that back to the idea of relationships and consent, because we were talking about how like it can be used to like basically encroach on other people's lives with your boundaries. I just want to throw out like a really simple one. For example, Fresh and Fit, right? They believe that like a man, like his boundary is that he should be able to cheat on his girlfriend. I don't want to just like give this like a specific like example, but like in my opinion, that's an example of something where you're just trying to like impose like your will on somebody else. You're like, if you want to even be in a relationship or anything, you have to let me cheat on you.
Well, so it kind of depends though, doesn't it? Like if you're going to have a conversation with a potential partner and say, hey, by the way, this is how I like to live my life. If we're going to be in a relationship, you have to be okay with me sleeping around with other women. That's totally fine. Like that. Yeah. That is not abusive or anything like that.
I think it is abusive. Like, but the thing is, you don't think it's abusive, and we can have that argument. But I think
if she agrees, how is it abusive?
I'm allowed to think it's abusive, and I don't necessarily think that. I think the argument takes place in the public square where we have this conversation, and if I win this socially, then we as a society agree that you should not be allowed to do that. But until that point, I'm not encroaching on you, and I'm not going to be like,
Do you think that open relationships are inherently abusive then?
One way, I think he's saying. All open relationships, Smith?
Not all open relationships.
Sorry, babe, just one way.
I think it's a really open relationships are really dangerous, and the most of them probably like more than half are abusive. But that one probably is. Half? Yeah, definitely more than half.
But incidentally, not inherently, you would say.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So one-sided, you think are inherently abusive, which I think I would
more likely inherently.
Yeah, and then open are like just at like higher risk.
It's really risky behavior. It's just so risky. That's all.
I would agree with that.
Well, where does the abuse come in?
Sure, where's the inherent
Yeah, do we
Oh,
have a
yeah,
word?
definitely
Do we have a
I'm sorry.
definition for the abuse thing yet? Is that
Okay, I googled it, and
If I
it's
could
not going to satisfy you. What the definition of abuse here is also vague. So it's not. It's the to use improperly or excessively misuse, to hurt or injure by maltreatment, ill use, to force sexual activity on.
Getting so good.
So
Oh.
the first
cruelty and
two.
violence.
you cut out?
But
You cut
the
out.
second
Smith.
one is with doing basically cruelty and violence to another person.
Right. So that's where I'm saying. So if I think that what your boundaries are cruel and violent, or like you're making someone
Violent.
not have a cell phone.
Well, violent is less subjective.
different-
In my opinion.
There's different uses of the word violent.
Sure, I think there's a lot of like good like I think like words are very subjective, but I also think that there's like good logical underpinnings for how you can like somewhat gatekeep and limit words. And I think like violence is one of these words that I think is like, even though
Well,
people use
physical-
it, I agree that people use like, oh, he said mean words to me. He did
But
violence.
violence.
Yeah,
wasn't
most people
in-
are gonna assume it's
violence.
physical.
Violence wasn't in the definition. It was just to injure or maltreat. To injure or maltreat covers both, like physical or an emotional
Okay.
abuse.
If-
Like to
Wait, I have
improperly
a-
use. So like, but like. If by that, like if I can think something's abusive that you don't think is abusive, so like that can happen all the time. And so when we have these conversations, like we have to defer to what is the law and what should be the law, because it's very subjective. What is abuse is subjective.
Okay,
I
I have a
question
question
here.
for you.
Given
though, really
that,
quick.
given that we can disagree on what's abusive, then
Yeah.
isn't the answer to allow people to choose what they want to tolerate and what they are consenting to? If I don't
Yes.
feel that something's abusive, then it's my choice to consent to that, versus if you feel that it is, then you would decline. And that's kind of the
Well,
whole thing in a nutshell.
I'm saying that conversation doesn't. I don't go to you in that case and tell you, like, unless I'm like your family member, but I don't go to you and tell you like not to do that. But we have a public conversation where, like, if I really think that what you're doing is like harmful to you and you should not be allowed to be hurting yourself like that, and I'm passionate about that, then that I'm trying to make that a law or something. And if the society all agrees, now that's like a law. And until that point, I'm not going to you and telling you I don't think I should be going to you and telling you to stop.
Okay. Really
Again,
easy
like, I
question.
think-
Super easy question for Smith. Really quick. If I want to have a relationship with someone and I tell them, if you want to be in a relationship with me, I have a really strict rule that you're not going to go get dicked down by someone else. Is that abusive?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So
Well,
if you have-
actually,
if you have a-
it is like abusive. It's like a 1 out of 10, because monogamy in
I'm
itself,
talking about inherently
monogamy
abusive.
itself
I don't
is
care. I don't
is
Let
awful.
Smith finish. Let
I'm
Smith
talking
finish.
about inherently abusive.
Yes,
Is it
yes,
inherently-
yes. Monogamy in itself is inherently like you're taking someone away from someone for your own insecurities, and you are causing some harm to them. But we put up with it because we can't have like that. Like,
Wow.
It's impossible to
Didn't
consent
you
to
okay,
these
just
kind
say
of-
okay, people
that
that don't understand
That
this.
definition
there's-
of relationships.
Have you
is
if you
just
don't
mind-blowing.
understand this, maybe
Right now.
like do like read
we're not
a,
as smart as you. I got
yeah.
you.
Okay, shut the fuck up. I really don't. You're the, okay.
Mr.
If you
Girl
don't
Hour.
understand
I
this,
love
you
triggering
could,
this guy. It's
if
so
you
funny.
if you don't understand this, keep talking over me. That's going to be the best way to do it.
Just restate it, Smith.
If you don't understand this, you can read something about the hedgehog's dilemma, or about how intimacy is inherently intimacy has violence to it, and there's violence in the not physical violence term, but intimacy in itself. It's like that when we love each other, we hurt each other, and in that when monogamy is, we are also hurting people by doing it. But it's small.
I think the problem with what you're describing, I'm somewhat like familiar with like what you're actually talking about, is I think it comes from like this really weird worldview that like romanticizes and kind of like not even romanticizes. It's almost like
What are you looking at?
What?
Oh, you were like looking off on the side. I thought something was going on.
She's
No,
thinking.
I'm just thinking.
Okay, sorry, my bad. My bad.
It like romanticizes in many ways and like idealizes like I think really pernicious ways of thinking about relationships, which very much like pits people inherently against each other, and therefore is like this take type of relationship like in and of itself. And I think like labeling something like because love hurts people, there's like inherent violence that's kind of like going on here. I think like necessarily like it feels very like I'm going to use a bunch of like dramatic language, and I'm not making like a passive dig at you at all. It's just like the best language I can think of to describe it. It feels like, like on Tumblr when like it got really popular to post like lots of like self-harm imagery to the point that it seemed like almost masturbatory and like reveling in like the pain of self-harm. I think like these types of like worldviews about relationship feel very akin to that. Like I don't think it's identical, but it feels like it's almost like this weird like I understand that there's harm and that it's abusive, and therefore like there's like this problem that's going on. It feels like it's like reveling in something that really all you would need to go is harm does occur, but harm isn't always like immoral, right?
I think I agree with that. I agree.
Okay. And then if harm is not immoral, then things like just because I hurt my partner, which I agree, any partnership results in some level of hurt, right? Even people who really love each other, then that doesn't imply that like a violence has been done or a harm, or therefore that an abuse has been done, because I don't think that we can define any form of harm as just abuse, because if we do, then abuse is fine most of the time, and then I don't know where to draw the line of when abuse isn't okay. I prefer to have the language like abuse means something that like isn't okay, and then harm is all the messy stuff in between that we go, yeah, it happens, but it is morally neutral, if that makes sense.
Well, I also don't know
this
where
is
to.
where I like come down to. Sorry, just very quickly, because I think this matters, because we talk about this stuff from the abstract, but I feel like we're missing like the more extreme things. If we want to look at like Jonah Hill and be like, okay, we can say that these boundaries may be extreme, but I don't think many people here are like, okay, this is abusive. But part of the problem is when we look at it, we're looking at like relationships that almost we can see are unhealthy. But the real question is, what about people who like get dragged into cultish relationships or have some weird dynamics that clearly have an impact on how that person's able to think? And like you can again see the court coming down when people aren't able to consent for like, let's say you've got somebody who's mentally ill, or like the JF example is really good at this. JF like regularly like dated and married like mentally retarded women. It's so much so that one woman was taken away from him by the court. They had to intercede, and the parents were like, she can't consent. And the court was like, she can't consent. She has the understanding of a child. And if there are certain boundaries being put to you and you're like, yeah, this is absolutely fine, like, great, then I think there are certain levels where you're like, actually, that's abusive because you're with somebody who clearly has hangups. And like, maybe the career one is, if you go to somebody and say, listen, we can be in a relationship together, but you have to give me complete power and control over you. You have to make sure that the wages you earn come to me so I can like give them to like do the right thing with them, make sure that all the bills are paid. You're not trustable enough. And like those implicit dynamics, we might be like, oh, well, you can consent to that. But realistically, if we saw one of our friends in that relationship, we would try so hard to get them out. And when we look at people who've had these relationships blow up years later and they're like, this is what this person did to me, we understand that those were abusive. Even if they were boundaries, even if they're presented that way, they're actually not, right?
I mean, I guess I would say, like, yeah, definitely those situations are abusive, but more importantly, they're illegal, right? Like, they're not consensual because, in the case of JF,
financial control is still something that is legal, but if somebody has like no ability to live their life financially independently, they're completely reliant financially on a partner, and everything that they do is controlled by that partner. It's legal, right?
Yeah, this is why we've ended up with women's shelters, isn't it? Like we've not like done away with this and been like, we don't need women's shelters anymore because women like are always financially independent in their relationships.
Well, what would you think about like the romanticization?
That's a tough
women
one.
who romanticize traditional relationships, the trad wives trend or whatever. Like, how do you feel about that? Because a lot of what you described here seems really, really similar to people that like actually prefer to be in relationships where
I think even in trad relationships, you will still have women who will still have some amount of agency in their decision making abilities.
Sure,
right?
yeah, more or less.
This idea, no. Just to be really fucking clear about this, because this is like this is a far right myth of what relationships looked like in the 1950s, and even then, very often women ran the household, they ran the finances, they ran the sort of like ethics and rules in the house because the man wasn't there. Like those relationships, like had power dynamics in them where often women had quite a lot of control and power. The way this trad relationship is pushed forward is not like the reality of how those relationships were. And we also understand that the reason they're pushed so much on the far right is because they're pushed by people who are deeply fucking misogynistic. And the people who get involved in those relationships, listen, if somebody came out and said, I want to have a trad business where I don't pay my employees properly and they live in a fucking dormitory and get 2 meals a day, we wouldn't be like, oh, well, that's the lifestyle.
Like, I think like when it comes to like things like financial abuse, I think that's something that I wouldn't be surprised to see like in the future gets extended into like criminal law. In fact, I know like in Canada there is talks about this specifically because like a lot of things like economic abuse, it does fall sometimes under branches like coercion, right? But for any woman who's been financially abused, she can tell you good fucking luck, right? Good fucking luck trying him. However, my understanding is that like I hear what you're saying. I guess I don't really see the argument. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing it. Like, what is the driving home issue that you're like raising here?
Okay,
Like,
so the core drive, I guess, is that there are standard boundaries that we all have and build that go kind of, we need to work this out together. I think actually, do you know what? That's how I'll underline it. There are certain things in a relationship that can look a bit weird from the outside, but there are things that have occurred where we're like, okay, maybe I don't want you to have an OnlyFans, and maybe I want you to give up this particular part of your life. Maybe I even want to give up your career because it's part of the wider thing that we're doing together, and it benefits both of us, and we have to make difficult decisions.
can I be the worst? Can you simplify this into like one sentence? What is the driving point here?
Sure. Boundaries that benefit both people and for a common cause are good. Boundaries that benefit only one partner and are set out to control the other partner are abusive. Yeah, it's really hard because it's kind of
almost all boundaries benefit like one partner over the other because boundaries is typically a response to insecurities at the end of the day, right? So like Nick and I have boundaries. Like I have boundaries over Nick on certain things and he has boundaries over me, and they're not the same thing necessarily, but they're two different levels of things that like for me, unfortunately, I have certain insecurities, and this is like this is the nature of love. Is I go, I love you enough that I'm going to give you parts of myself that I don't want to give you and you don't want to receive. And the person who loves you goes, it sucks, that is a limit for me, and I love you enough that I'm willing to make it work because I value the relationship over whatever this specific boundary is, right?
Like
that's what boundary negotiations are. Go ahead, Nick, sorry.
Like I was just saying, like a really good exemplification of this is like flirting, right? Like I don't think almost anyone in Western society views flirting as inherently wrong within or without of the bounds of a relationship. But in a lot of relationships, we say, okay, you can and can't flirt with these people. You can and can't flirt with these people, and it doesn't have to be a two-way street. It just doesn't even. Yeah. It can suck, right? Like so, as an example, or like a theoretical, right? Say me and Erudite are in our first year of marriage, and I say, listen, it makes me really insecure when you go out to business dinners with other men or something like pull the Mike Pence scenario, right? That's totally within the bounds for me to ask of her. And it doesn't necessarily have to be reciprocal. And even if it's not abusive. It's just something that I might require. And I'm allowed to ask and she's allowed to say no.
Can I pose something? Because like,
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like something that might be, I'm still like thinking about it myself, but like, it feels like phrasing it as an ask is really, really important. In relation to like if it's not phrased as an ask, if you're in a relationship with someone and then you make demands on them, right. That is a totally different scenario, right? But like, I feel like sometimes asks and demands can look really, really similar, and that's when you start getting into really dangerous territory.
Do you think so? If you ask with a what's that word? If you ask with an ultimatum, is that what you would define as a demand? So basically, I'm asking this of you, and I'm really sorry, but if you can't give it to me, we're done. Like, is that?
It's totally fine, but you'll be single afterwards.
That's what I'm saying. That's where I think the line starts to like get blurry. I think it's totally fair to make asks of a partner and then say, if these aren't fulfilled, then I don't think that we should have a relationship with each other. I think that's totally fine. It feels really weird when you try and rephrase it into a scenario where like if you have two people in a relationship and then someone starts doing something that's like that they see as wrong, and then it's almost like punitively they're like you cannot be doing this, and it's not even like it's not even about like whether or not the relationship's going to work. It's just you cannot do this, period.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's the like my probably single greatest frustration with the red pill shit is that it's never a request, it's never an ask, it's never a boundary. It's almost unanimously like a moral imposition. It's like a dude telling his wife or his girlfriend or his partner or whatever, if you do this, you're fucking scum. You're a thought. You're a 304, whatever. And if I do it. It's like I'm a man. Like, come on, it's my birthright.
I mean,
whatever, dog.
I
What are you
actually
talking
feel that it's better that they're so forthright about this stuff because I mean, honestly, at least you know what you're in for, and you can immediately say, "Fuck you, I'm not dealing with that bullshit."
It's a good litmus test for women. I mean, if a guy
Hold on.
tells a girl that he wants to do this kind of stuff, she can just immediately be like, "That kind of relationship sounds like it's not for me." So actually,
Bounce.
like that kind of thing is going to be really helpful if you want to put that up forward as a boundary. It can just like
one more
literally help
stuff.
determine if they
Yeah,
want to
like
be in a
we're-
relationship.
Well,
One
that
more
also
thing.
comes. They also have to
Wait,
get
wait,
rich so
wait,
that
wait,
women
one more
have a
thing.
harder
One more
time
thing.
saying no.
Wait, let's let Madam
It's true.
Genevieve. Let's let
True.
Madam Genevieve jump in.
I think like a common theme throughout the past few points is that like these are important conversations to have, but it needs to be a conversation, not just like a list of demands. And ideally, it should happen at the beginning of the time when you guys are starting to like define your relationship as something that you're like both committing to, right? Because that's sort of a turning point.
Exactly.
shouldn't
And the
wait
thing that
to
I was
bring
going to
this
add
up,
is
like,
is
it's
exactly
different.
connected to that, where like if you get into a relationship, and a lot of relationships, for one reason or another, can have dynamics where like one person is working more than the other. They're sharing a house. They're sharing so many different things. Asks like this later on, there can be implications that are being overlooked. Whereas like now I'm making an ask of you that you need to behave in this way, and this way. And implicitly, if you don't agree to this, then you're going to be kind of like shit out of luck financially as well.
Yeah, I think just to rephrase mine, because I think I've like the conversation's helped. Like
Yes.
really simply, it's when when a boundary removes the power from the other person, that's when it becomes abusive. Does that make sense? So when your boundary is literally depowering your partner, it's not the same
I
as
don't think that's abusive.
I
I've agreed.
don't want you to go to.
I think it's
No, like,
risky. I think it's risky. But for example, like in relationships where, for example, like say you've got a partner who like has like serious mental health crises and they're aware of this, you guys have talked about it. Say you've got a partner who has schizophrenia, and depending on like certain like things, there's sometimes risks where they like might have psychotic breaks. And so there might be agreements, for example, that like necessarily disempower them at times, both agreed upon when they're both like in good states, that are disempowering boundaries. There are certain limits, for example, where like if they try to take out too much money from the bank account at a single time, it like the person gets pinged in it, they can override it. And so like even disempowering boundaries can be good or can be bad. And I think like this highlights the difference between like social trials and legal trials, because in legal trials
Right.
there are black and white definitions. In the case of like relationship dynamics though, it's so much more complicated, which is why like when it comes to like relationship dynamics, when is it abuse? Is like, well, there's certain things that are obviously abuse, but it's a lot of a low-key's wager of like, well, it looks like abuse, so it's probably abuse, but also like, I don't know where the neck and the head begins, you know?
What I like to do, this is my system. I know people fucking don't like it. I call it all abuse. Even like I'm willing to just say even monogamy itself is abuse, but it's just a little bit. It's just a little bit, and who cares? And so I like to look at it as a scale, and like, so you're asking and you're setting boundaries that take something away from someone else, and we have a standard of how much rights somebody should have, and if you are taking enough things away from somebody, where now you're like. There's a point at which you're taking too much away from them, and at that point, that point's gonna be different for different people with different values. But at that point is when you're gonna consider it abuse.
I feel like a really big distinction is making sure that like one thing that's really important is boundaries can change over time as well, on both sides of this. So, and really important thing that I was kind of alluding to earlier is making sure that setting those boundaries don't have this implicit like a coercion to the answer, where like if you are going to be making a boundary, then you better damn well know that the person on the other end has the power to say no, the full power to say no. And if they don't, that's when you're going to be getting into really harmful scenarios.
I do want to kind of revisit what Beckett said about disempowering somebody, because I do think that there was a valid point in there. I understand what like Not So Erudite is saying about somebody who's maybe mentally ill, that you do have to disempower in some situations because because of what they're going through. But I think you have to disempower them in those situations, because if you don't, they will be disempowering you and your entire family, right? Like that, like you kind of yes, there needs to be like limits if somebody decides to take out like a ridiculous amount of money out of a bank account, right? That is going to eventually or is immediately going to disempower you. So I do think, like, these boundaries, I do think the disempowerment thing is a pretty good definition of something that maybe this boundary is not okay if it's disempowering like just one person disproportionately. But if it's like a defense mechanism from your entire life being ruined and you being disempowered yourself as a result of somebody having a mental break or something like that, I think that's a pretty like valid way to kind of look at it.
I just think when it comes to like social situations, I think almost always when something becomes unethical is usually when we find out about the consequence, right? Until then, there's like a lot of ambiguity, particularly in like
Sure,
these types
it's
of
good.
relationships dynamics, right?
Yeah.
So like if
Yeah.
you take a risk with your relationship and you give a boundary that disempowers your partner, say there's a mental illness going on and you fuck it up and you do harm to that person, you are wrong now and you were always wrong, even though it was potentially worth taking the risk, right? And so like this is why I think when it comes to like social trial, I think it should be a lot less prescriptive and a lot more reactive, right? So like, is it abuse? I think is oftentimes a question solved in each instance rather than like broadband, like, well, this is when a boundary becomes specifically an abuse and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, maybe
so
I
hard
wouldn't
to
say
have
like
that.
yeah, maybe I wouldn't say specifically disempowerment is like when it becomes abuse, but I would say like maybe disempowerment is when it becomes kind of like suspect, right? Something that we should like look at a little bit closer. Why is this boundary in place? Why is this boundary something that disempowers the other party?
Well, I think like
Is that a question?
it matters what your values
No,
are,
it's not a
because
it's a statement.
it like so what is disempowering to like an American is different from what's disempowering to someone
Somali.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can I ask a litmus question?
Go for it.
So this is like a more recent thing that was like super duper common. It's becoming like, I think, exponentially less common, but it's been a pretty common standard in like America, Canada, whatever, that generally female partners find it wrong or cheating or whatever for male partners to like watch pornography and stuff like that. So there's still a lot of people that hold that standard, right? It used to be a lot more common. It's getting a lot less common. Do you guys think that that would be an example of an acceptable boundary that may be like immature and insecure, but is utterly acceptable because it's obviously disempowering your partner? It's all obviously enforcing control over them. It's not particularly fair, I think, by our like Western standards. But is it acceptable? Is it something that you can do, or is it abuse?
Yeah,
I like the phrasing of disempowering your
yes,
partner.
it's
How
insecure, but
much
if both
is that
people agree to it, then it's fine.
disempowerment,
Yeah.
though, right? Like
Yeah,
how-
exactly.
Yeah, that disempowerment is not really is not like life ruining, right? Or
Well,
not
the
significantly-
issue-
significantly,
The issue
like-
is no.
Significant-
I
Only
mean, I think
Right?
sexual freedom is pretty important. Like the stakes may not be super like high.
Well,
Like it
well-
might not cause like damages that we would consider in court. But like your sexuality is a pretty big part of your life. you know?
I
And you're also- you're also-
carte blanche,
you're
right?
also-
I mean,
Having
like,
a healthy sex life adds exponentially positive things to your life, both physically and mentally.
I would
yeah,
say
but your partner
importantly-
always
I
has
would say
boundaries about your
importantly in
sexuality.
Yeah, not
That's like a
necessarily.
big
Not get here, anybody,
Importantly,
man.
Hold on.
Aaron,
Hold on,
no,
hold on,
hold on, hold on. Let's let Erudite speak and then Beck.
To the panel.
Beckett, you can
Go
go
on,
after Erudite.
Yeah, that's fine. Go.
Yeah,
I would say importantly in the case of like the pornography, I think why it's in disempowering specifically is because especially it's very unlikely to be upheld, essentially. I think it is going to be exceedingly difficult, and you're essentially establishing your partner to be fighting with you and feeling like they are cheating on you. So it's not just like a boundary cross, because if the boundary is what cheating is, but cheating is viewed as immoral. So you're setting up your partner to morally fail you, like indefinitely. This is why, like, I encourage most Christian women to be like, I would get over it. Like, I would move on.
for
But-
sure.
Sorry, Becky,
Yeah.
go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
I think it is a completely
Uh,
reasonable boundary. I think it is completely
Wow, okay.
reasonable. Yeah, look,
That's surprising.
absolutely. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Look,
Finally, Becky
I
going
know-
mask off. Jesus
I
Christ.
know plenty of men and women who have felt their sex lives fall apart because they feel like the pornography that their partner has watched has set an unhealthy standard for them, and they're just like, listen, I should be enough for you. We're married. You looking at people who are nothing like us, and then listen, the idea that pornography is just fucking neutral and has no effect on us has been pretty well fucking discussed and gone into, and we can see that pornography does have an impact on
Extremes
for a
for a
lot
lot
of
of people.
I
There are
actually-
really-
No.
Okay,
Hold on,
let me finish.
Hold
let me
on,
finish.
wait.
Let
Let
me
Becky finish. Let Becky
I would
finish.
like
Let
to
Becky
speak.
finish.
Let,
I would like
let
to
me-
speak. Okay.
So
Same.
let Beckett finish.
Beckett,
Let
Let
finish.
Beckett's girlfriend
Look.
speak.
Fuck me. Right. No, I think it's one of those where the idea that because most people enjoy pornography, this is just a modern standard that we have, but it's also driven incredibly by internet culture. And much like the people on Fresh and Fit who are like, you should let your partner fucking cheat on you, that is actually not a standard for a lot of people. And I think we're overexposed to a bubble in this. I think an awful lot of people find it uncomfortable.
So okay, first off, I'm going to say whoever the fuck labeled me as Beckett's girlfriend,
girlfriend
fuck
to me.
you. Fuck
It's me.
you. If anything, if you're going to call one of us something, you call him
Beckett's-
Stardust boyfriend.
Would you
know?
rather us call you his banana?
I would rather be called by my name. But
Ooh.
anyways, what I would say is I can understand Becca's perspective on this, and personally, while I think like the porn thing is like a little bit too much of a boundary, I understand it. I would probably have a significant problem if somebody said that their partner wasn't allowed to masturbate. I feel like that is bodily autonomy. I feel like if you're not allowed to fucking masturbate, like that in itself is like, I think that would be like too much for me, as far as like as far as like porn itself, I don't really know. I don't think that it's I think in comparison it's not that big of a deal. Like it's not something that is, when I talk about something that disempowers somebody, when I think about that, I'm thinking about something that that it fucks with their life in a significant way. And unless unless you're like, unless, I don't know, your life is reliant on porn, I don't see how that would be the case.
Well, I mean, okay, think of it this way. This might be a totally, shit take, but I think as a woman, if you're going to deny your man the exception to look at porn, to jack off to porn, then you should be kind of ready every time he wants to have sex.
No,
I
feel
would
like-
say that about
no.
masturbating.
I feel like if we're
I
gonna-
would say that about masturbating, but not
Something-
about porn.
Something that I think is really important, because I feel like principally we're kind of like principally, if you think that it's crossing a line to ask for a boundary of your partner not to watch porn, I don't see how that's much different principally from asking your partner not to be sleeping with other people. If
Okay.
you have an ask like that, and the partner agrees to it, that's perfectly acceptable.
But like with the porn
just-
thing, it like
I just think it's bad. I just think it's bad. I think you're setting your relationship up to be fucked. But I agree. I don't think
that's
it's
what-
you would say.
just to be
I'm
clear,
just saying
I
we
don't think it's
shouldn't base
abuse.
it on like social standards or our
Yeah.
own moral presuppositions or anything like that. It's just whether or not like this is an ask that two people can come to the conclusion, yes, I can do that for you. If you have an insecurity that says that if your partner's watching porn, it makes you feel really, really bad and that you can't sustain a relationship, if that's the case, that's totally acceptable. If the other person says, yes, that's fine, then it's all good.
Okay, so final clarification on it then for me, if that's okay, really quick. Sorry, Smith.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is it acceptable? Is it abuse? Is it dumb? Because I would say it's acceptable.
Yes.
It's not
No.
abuse, and it isn't
Yes.
dumb. It is dumb. Sorry.
Yes, I would say the
Yeah.
same. Yes, no,
Yeah.
yes.
like the thing about it being dumb though, if the reason that they want it isn't explicitly because they're insecure, it's because they're insecure because they believe something that's dumb. And maybe you can have like a conversation where, you know, like because if you think, like, I don't agree with what Beckett said. I think that there isn't a lot of evidence that shows like it really. I think that I don't think that that's proven. So if there's evidence and you can have these, like, so again, it's different on an interpersonal level because if it's just your insecurity, but if we're going to set a standard of, is that abuse, like objectively should we call it abuse, then we should go by like what we can prove causes harm to people.
Well, so
Can
I agree.
I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Okay. So
No.
we did it for porn. Can we handle masturbation? Because I think having a boundary where your
Are we
partner's
done
not
with the
allowed to
porn? I just want to make
I think
sure. Are we
so.
done with
No,
the
I
porn
wanna-
conversation?
I want to go back.
I
to
consent
porn.
to
Because
no more
I'm
porn
good to do the
conversation.
masturbation. I just want to derail
Yeah.
away if
Okay.
there's like a bunch
Hold
of
on.
people that
Sure,
just want to
sure.
talk.
That's good.
okay,
That's a good point.
because I don't think it's dumb, and these are the reasons. So, firstly, from the evidence basis, we're seeing people like younger people who are exposed to a lot of pornography from a young age. We see this with like celebrities have come out. Billie Eilish has come out and said this. It changes how people view sex. It changes how people view relationships. It does have impacts. We are affected by the media we watch. Saying otherwise just doesn't track with anything we know about media consumption. It's like saying, well, if you watch like one particular news source, it's not going to affect your opinions. You're a critical person. That's obviously not fucking true.
Yeah, but
The
something that
second-
negatively affects you doesn't mean that it's a reasonable ask to not do
Yeah,
porn. just
like
because
you know
porn
what's-
is-
No, hold on.
Okay.
Let me finish. So, but secondly, like when we're talking about why it can negatively affect and why it's not necessarily like a dumb idea. Firstly, it may turn your partner in a way that, like, from early on in your relationship, their sexual desires and wants, and you're seeing their appetites change to something that you can't match and is becoming a problem in the relationship. And secondly, if your partner is watching a load of pornography that doesn't match up to any way that you look or like act or anything else, it could have implications, not even from an insecurity point of view, of how you see yourself and what you think your partner wants. Because we know that people get insecure over time in relationships over really minor things. It's a normal thing to happen.
So
I don't think it's dumb. I think it's fine if you don't, but I don't think it's a dumb
We
ask.
disagree on that, and that's what makes us think of it differently. So you might be right,
Sure,
I might be right.
sure, that's
yeah.
fine.
So I guess what I would say is like possibility or even probability of harm, I don't think can be the standard that we set for why these things are okay or are dumb or aren't dumb is the issue. Because if that's our standard, then it's like I can probably name a few things that are worse than porn or masturbation, like joining the military, especially if you have to serve a tour, or working a really awful trade like roughnecking or something like that that's going to be insanely hard on your body, or being a fucking surgeon where your hours are insane, you're not going to be emotionally available, and yada yada yada, right? So yeah, and maybe I shouldn't have said dumb. That was a little bit flippant. When I say dumb, I mean something that you, as the person asking the boundary, the world would be better if you got over it.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean,
disagree
both
with
me
you.
and Beckett probably think that the
But-
world would be better if either of us think the same as the other one. You know what I mean? In this case, or whatever. I mean, but we don't sound like we're willing to, like, you know, just like, you know, agree to disagree. But it sounds like we believe that we're
10
both
minutes,
right.
start wrapping the panel up.
Yeah, I think it's
Can
also
we
the
ask
fact
about
that
masturbation before we
Yes.
end the panel?
Yeah, 10 minutes, so start
a good-
talking about masturbation.
Yeah, fuck it, we'll move
Gotta
on to
go.
masturbation.
Finish in 10 minutes.
I think preventing somebody from masturbating, it could be abusive, honestly, because like masturbation, I feel men need to empty. So there are health benefits to masturbation. Men need to empty out their
I don't think they
Uh,
need to. I think there's benefits to
but there are
masturbating, but I don't
benefits
think
to
it's
it.
harmful not to.
Not need is the wrong word, right? But there are benefits to it. You know, reduce risk of like
Prostate cancer.
you know, things like that. So I do think that it's like too far. Like saying that your partner masturbating is cheating. I think that's too far. What do you guys
I'm
think?
gonna
I
actually
think-
jump
I
in.
think that's
I
a
think
good
some-
reason
I
to
think
hold
there's
on.
some
know
really
to
good
ask.
evidence from the 1800s that when women get hysterical, they need to be sent to a doctor and helped through like medical science. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really important.
I
and,
just
the
wanna-
1800s is based.
I want to add to the jacking off situation. by telling
Ooh,
by telling
okay.
no, by telling your partner
Both
that they can
hands, let's
jack off,
see.
but they by telling your
Alright.
partner by telling your partner that they can jack off but they can't watch porn. I mean, you're kind of inevitably telling them to think about whatever woman is in their life at
They
that point
kinda
in
go
time.
hand in
Like
hand.
you can't knock off porn and say,
I
oh
was like
well, you
hand in
can't.
hand. Fuck me.
Come on, men have imaginations.
Come
No,
on.
you don't. You really
Come
don't.
on.
The only women you're gonna think of are celebrities, or you're gonna think of the women in your
Your
lives. Like
wife,
Or past
Your-
lovers.
you know,
I'm
your
so-
wife and your mom.
I think I really don't want
Ooh.
to confuse the principal. I really
What
don't
the
want to
fuck is
confuse the
wrong with
principal.
you? Come
If-
on.
How
I
many
think
people here have had sex
Let-
dreams
let-
with their family
let-
members? I'd like to
Jesus
know that.
Christ, no star.
That
Let's
one
go,
is a
kid.
no for me.
Poor
okay,
kid.
wait. Hold on. Okay, I really don't want to confuse the principal. Even if we're talking about masturbation, if someone makes an ask, it's still an ask. It's a good reason. Everything you said is a good reason to say no to that ask and say that is not. I am not willing to do that. But if someone is making an ask like that because they're insecure and they want their relationship to work, and you say, "Yeah, that's fine. I can do that for you," then there you go.
I
Yeah,
think there
I
are things
completely
that
agree with that.
I think there are
Makes the
things
same.
that are not okay to ask because in this case I've done this. I've had relationships where I wasn't allowed to masturbate, but I had a safe word when I did that. So like
Wait,
so
sorry?
if
Yeah,
there's
there are
something
obviously dynamics in relationships where
if there's
people
if you're
control, like,
doing
No, no,
if
no,
you're
no, 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 no.
if
Can
you're
we not-
giving me
no.
if you're
So
giving me
fucking
if you're
degenerate.
giving me an ask that in any normal situation should have a safe word, but you're not giving me a safe word, then that's kind of a big ask, you know?
I don't understand the safe word with
Yeah,
not
I know you want to wrap
masturbating.
the
You have
channel
a
up.
safe
Negotiate
word
your
for yourself?
boundaries. Is it?
What
Like,
is your
you
safe
start
word than
going off and you're like,
masturbating?
banana or something. I mean, that shouldn't be your safe word.
Is
Safe
it
word
like-
is
are you
your
talking
safe
about,
word.
like,
I don't know
compelled
how that
retention?
works. So you just sat at the dinner table and it's like actually like pineapple, and then suddenly it's like it's fine. You've
Are you
used the
say-
safe word.
Are you saying it's like
I really need
compelled-
clarity.
Yeah, are you saying it's like compelled retention, Smith? Like,
No, I've just had relationships where I had people tell me if I was allowed to or not, and I didn't want
okay,
to choose.
okay.
So-
Okay.
But it's like off and on. Okay, I
It's
got
like a kink thing. It's like a kink.
Yeah,
thing.
yes, but like, but
there you go.
like to control someone's sexuality is like when you're controlling someone's sexuality, you have a safe word, and if you don't, then that's abuse. We consider that
just-
abusive.
I just think kinks are really different than boundaries, right? Because in the case of the kink, she's
that's it.
like your partner wasn't asking you not to masturbate. You were asking them to get you to not masturbate for the purpose of the kink. In the case of the
Right.
boundary, it would just be your partner saying, "It makes me insecure."
But that's what
I-
I'm saying. I'm saying that makes it worse. Because
Why?
I'm not even part of it. Like, because at least I'm.
Oh,
getting
yeah.
I'm
Sure.
saying like.
Okay, I'm with you.
Worse.
I'm with
Yeah,
you.
sure. Yeah.
cool.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's perfectly acceptable to say no to that ask.
Yeah.
This is a godless panel.
Look, you have 5 minutes. Start screaming at each other. Jesus fucking Christ.
okay.
Fuck you. Get better internet.
So it seems like basically
Fuck
everybody
you, be a
said
better streamer.
masturbation. So is the idea that masturbation is the same? Everyone thinks except for Star.
I don't think
As-
masturbate. You should. Yes. I think that's the same. I don't
Okay.
think that you shouldn't cancel out porn and be like, yeah, but it's fine to masturbate. Like, it
Well,
just,
can I clarify on this? Like, it's not. So I think the porn boundary is stupid, right? But I don't. I also, if people talk about that, I think it's reasonable if that's really what they want, right? I personally think it's stupid. I would never impose that kind of boundary on somebody else. Whereas the masturbation boundary, I feel like could be like borderline something, maybe not abusive, but borderline something. Just I feel like that is a complete violation of what somebody is allowed to do with their own body.
Okay.
It depends on
I-
it depends on whether or not they agree with it. If you are
Yeah.
if you want to get into a relationship and you tell the woman, "Listen, I really like you. I'm really insecure though. If you want to have a relationship where you're my little sex slave and you stay in the house at all times and you make sure that you only eat the meals that I prepare for you, if you are fine with doing that, then
Now
we
I
can
know
have a
why you're
relationship."
why,
Bro,
why
kid,
your
why are you
other
leaking
is
our
not here.
DMs?
Don't. Okay,
Exactly why
don't.
she's
Okay,
not on
it's just a joke. Chill.
I
Chill,
don't know.
She's
chill,
too
chill.
smart. She's too smart to be here for us. Uh-huh.
Locked up in the basement.
Story. Likely story.
I'm
Listen,
giving up too
I
much.
think
So-
that's-
so
you
in-
know what
in
I
your
mean,
world-
right?
in your
Actually, to
world-
Erudite's point, I think that sounds like a kink. Like if your partner comes to you and says, "Listen, I never want you to masturbate because I don't want you to waste any of your semen. It's all for me." That's not a boundary. That's a
That's
fucking
not-
kink. Okay.
that.
I think, for example, what do you guys think about a boundary of saying like, I'm not ever going to be comfortable with you ever getting an abortion. It's really something that I'm opposed to. So I'm the partner, right? Like that boundary. I would argue that that's a boundary
That is a
that could be
boundary.
imposed. It is
I
about
think
bodily
that's a
autonomy.
healthy boundary, though.
Yeah.
Probably
I feel like
more
that's a
acceptable
healthy
than
boundary, though.
yeah.
If you aren't capable of accepting that, then you should be with somebody who isn't capable of accepting
Mhm.
that. Like that should
Okay,
be something.
so that's an infringement, though, of bodily autonomy that we think is totally okay. So I,
I
guess
think it's
to
totally
start,
fine. Yeah.
do you
Well,
think
you
that
don't
that's
have to
okay?
agree to it, but then if you disagree, then that's probably the end of the relationship. Like
Yeah, of
you know,
course,
Yeah,
of course.
You can
Yeah, I
negotiate
think
that
this
out.
also. I
We
think this
see
also
that
depends on how
in
you
all
view
of these
abortion,
examples,
right?
though.
Mhm.
Because like
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think
a-
I don't think abortion
that's a
is
hard
like yes it is women's bodily autonomy, but
Mhm.
I'm quite a strong proponent of the idea that listen, women get a choice over whether they want to have a kid and everything else. Men should also have that choice. So like men should have the right to say like sign some paperwork and go, it's not mine, don't care about the fucking biology, you can never come after me for any money, fuck off.
Yeah.
If you want to have a kid, that is your choice. But at the same time, like I think I'd carry that over in the fact that like it's like, well, listen, I want to be in a relationship where we are definitely gonna have kids. And that's not, it's your body, but it's also potentially my child. And if I view it that way, I think that's legitimate. I don't think that's pure bodily autonomy. And I think that's why the abortion question is so difficult around men. Like,
What if your partner has a boundary about abortifacients? So like things that prevent implantation because they believe life begins at conception. So like no plan B, no IUDs.
I mean,
think
I think that's
that's
going to be a really niche group of people who are into
Yeah.
that. I mean, if
The
it works
question
for
is
them,
is
then-
it
yeah.
abuse? Is it abuse to ask?
I
Because
don't think it's
I don't
abuse.
think
Yeah, I don't think
any
it's
ask
abuse
is
to ask.
abuse.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I think they
don't
can be
it's
abused. I think asks can be abuse, but I don't think like, I think it's not objectively abuse until we agree it's legally. But like, I just think that me saying it's abuse means I don't think it's okay.
Can I ask?
I think also there's a cultural standard. Just very quickly. I think there's a cultural standard there. If we're going to say something like that, like if you're not allowed to use contraceptives, that would be an abusive boundary. Like what we're talking about is essentially a religious thing there for the vast majority of things like Catholics. And I think you'd be then hard pressed not to couple in things that like, well, is a hijab abusive because it goes against Western standards of how women are viewed.
And it isolates people, yeah.
But like,
Smith?
is all of our like propaganda about how like women's bodies like on every single TV show is abusive? Like it goes in every direction. So like it is really a lot of things are very subjective. So that just
Smith.
so obvious to me with the hijab thing. Sorry.
Smith, I just wanted to ask you, do you know what I mean if I say presentism?
No.
Oh, okay. Fuck.
I know.
Never mind.
No.
No,
Okay,
so
cool.
just define it. Just define it.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't want to waste time. So,
No,
presentism.
just define it.
Yeah. Presentism is basically when you view things that happened in the past that were viewed as like correct or right at the time as say we assume that we say
Hindsight
that
is
they're wrong
20/20.
now. We say that they were always wrong. Sorry.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah, but sure. Towards historical rights and wrongs and stuff. So, are you
Yeah.
a presentist? Do you believe in presentism?
No, I don't think. I don't think it's. Well, it depends. Like, there's I look at it from that lens, but I don't like live by that lens. You know, it's a lens to use.
Okay. So, if we change the law tomorrow about what's abusive and what's legally abusive for your partner, it's fine that people are doing it yesterday, but the second it's like codified or we agree on it or whatever, now it is wrong. But people
Right.
who did it before were fine, right? Is that correct?
Well,
or-
they were fine, but also they probably like. Oh, I guess maybe we shouldn't have been doing that. Like, you know, that kind of thing. So like we can't blame us because we didn't know. So.
Okay.
Just to clarify, so you'd say it's not morally condemnable because they lived in a culture where it was acceptable, but we understand.
Yeah, absolutely not morally
Let's say
condemnable.
you're
Okay.
okay. Because
I mean, I
There we go.
think that there are.
There we go.
Like, if you
We
have a
agree. This
partner-
look, we agree. All right, panel over. Fucking Christ. All right. There we go. All right, closing statements. Where can we find you and stuff like that? Stardust, go.
Yeah. I mean,
It's just-
okay. I think this is a very complicated because I think there are plenty of examples we can look at where people look like they're consenting to things, but it can actually be a pretty bad situation for them. With the example of, without going and things that are not against the law, right? For the example of like, the financial abuse, whether that is in the making somebody completely reliant upon you, or whether that is, you know, making that person work super fucking hard, so hard that to make you money, right? And that can come in multiple ways. And then there's also, like, you know, whether your partner doesn't want you to eat, right? Or, you know, wants you to starve. I don't know. They like that's, you know, super thin, heroin thin, physique or whatever. But I do think that it's a really complicated issue. I don't think the masturbation thing is abuse. I just think it's like really fucking weird. But yeah, I mean, there are things that are not under the law that people will take part in and could still be abusive in some scenarios. So yeah, it's complicated. But I do think overall, like when it comes to these public relationships, I think we need to kind of not completely condemn people when something comes out. We need to wait for more information to come out. And even if things do come out and things are really bad, we have to like look at things as kind of like a scale, right? And do we really want this person's life to be fucked forever because of mistakes that they made in their past or when they were young, things like that. Anyways, I can't even, we've covered so many topics. I feel like I can't even like cover everything, but thank you all. I'm Stardust. Find me at twitch.tv/Stardust or youtube.com/Stardust streams. Thanks.
All right, Smith.
All right. I'm Real Smith on YouTube. I'm on the other shit, but just go to YouTube. But and just fucking go there right now. How about you? Okay. But what
That's abusive.
I think that things are abusive. I don't fucking know. I think that we have to judge things. I don't know. I'm we've talked about a lot. I don't know.
Words.
Yeah.
Words, hearts, and feet.
All right, kid, not kid.
I feel like if you watch the panel, I feel like I got all my fucking my statements.
Then just say where we can find you. Holy shit!
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. You fucking retard.
God, you're an idiot. You're such a moron.
Okay? You
Oh
were.
my God, dude.
I'm gonna listen.
Shut up and say where we
Go
can
back.
find you, you
I'll go
retard.
back. Find me, Kid Knockin' on every single platform. It's written on the wall over there. Okay, every single platform.
Can you even write,
Go
you
find it.
dipshit?
Queen Alexa,
Oh my
I'm
God,
gonna
this is
actually
abuse. This
way
is
with
abuse.
You, okay.
Go fucking find poly people yet again. Jesus Christ, you're relevant then.
Stop it.
All right, Genevieve.
Hey guys, so I did come in about halfway through the panel, and we bounced all over the goddamn place in the process. But I think really the big takeaway for me is, you know, similar to that of Stardust, and that we can think things are dumb or ill-advised, but people are still allowed to choose them, right? Hopefully we can try and look out for people in our lives, and if we see them repeatedly making decisions and consenting to things that seem really harmful, that we can dig a little deeper into their situation and try and understand the nuance, because there's a lot of nuance in these. There's kind of a lot of circumstantial stuff. But regardless, you can find me on all of the platforms. The easiest one to go to is Twitter, Madam_Genevieve. That'll have a link to all of my other pages. And go there rather than Smith's, because it's a lot more fun, in my opinion.
Not so erudite.
Yeah, my name's Not So Erudite. You can find me everywhere under that name except for Kick, where there's a 1 after it because some asshole stole it.
Jerk.
Yeah, true. And then on Instagram and Threads now as well. This is Freya. She just took a poo and she's very happy. On Threads and Instagram, it's Not So Erudite with underscores in between. I think most people probably understand my position by now. So
Yeah.
All right, Big Nick.
Hey, name's Big Nick. I don't really stream, so don't follow me. Maybe I'll start later. Not So Erudite's husband, so if you want to see me, that's where I can be sometimes. Basically, you can make just about any asks you fucking want in a relationship. Just try to have your partner's interests at heart when you do them. I think also, and moralize less about the things that you have to say. You're allowed to make selfish asks in a relationship if you require it and if it makes the relationship better. Don't bullshit your partner that it's some kind of objective paradigm that they have to agree to or they're a piece of shit, because that makes you a piece of shit. That's it.
All right, no one cares about Beckett, so Ginger, how about you, Yolan?
All right, go Beckett. Go ahead, Beckett.
Oh, I'm Stardust Boyfriend. You can find me in Stardust Walls. She makes really good sandwiches. I think that's the primary thing that keeps our relationship together. And my safe word is pineapple.
If
Okay.
Stardust told you that she had a boundary of no longer making sandwiches, would you have to end the relationship?
Yeah, it'd be. Listen. Like it was 2 a.m. in the morning. I just finished some stuff, and I was
It was
like,
4
babe,
a.m.
He
It was
means
4
this. He means this.
Yeah, like, and I was like, babe, I'm really hungry. And she was like, oh, that's okay. I'll go and make you a sandwich. She didn't just make me like a basic sandwich. She toasted the bread, like put like proper sauce on it, like made me
That's
a
what I
full
do.
sandwich. It was fucking incredible. And yeah, it's
Sim
now like
behavior.
yeah.
The bar has been
God,
set. No, I
Beckett,
get
tell
it.
me she fucking dicks
10
you
out of
down.
10
That's how much she
Stardust.
dicks you down. Jesus Christ.
I'm not mind waves. Jesus Christ. Come on.
Holy
Okay.
God.
And last but not least, we have Ginger. Thank you guys so much for being on this panel. I really appreciate it. I reached out to all of you, and you guys were so quick to respond and so nice about it. Thank you so much for the last minute, Nick and Madam Genevieve and Stardust. It was great to have all three of you here. I am Ginger Ramoth. You can find me at Ginger Ramoth, twitch.tv/Ginger Ramoth, or on YouTube, Ginger Ramoth, or on Twitter, Ginger Ramoth. Thank you guys for stopping by, and you guys can either stick around and chat or feel free to just peace out.
It was a good panel, good conversation.
Who's
Yeah,
streaming?
thank you so much.
Does anybody want
I am.
a raid?
I'm
Okay.
Ginger
I'm
is.
streaming.
streaming as well.
Oh man.
Um,
Now I have
Oh,
to
you
pick my
can-
favorite.
Have a great
Yeah.
night.
Uh-oh.
What number am I thinking of between 1 and 10?
700.
4.
no, give
Six
Ginger the
6.9.
screen.
All right. There you have it. 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 Yeah. Go to bed. Good night.